Hello and welcome to One Trinity Place in San Antonio, Texas, as we're here for this Division III NCAA Regional between the Verne Leopards and the Trinity University Tigers. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the campus of Trinity University. I'm Cole Isaacson, joined alongside Luke Terry. And Luke, it's playoff baseball in San Antonio for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, walking around campus and down on the field before the game, there were a lot of voices saying that this was their first regional in San Antonio ever. Pitching coach Dave Smith was one of those guys, and he played on this team back in the early 2000s. So this is a first for us on the broadcast and for a lot of people involved here in San Antonio. I think it's a real luxury to have playoff baseball, and really maybe even more so to have it in a unique format in the way we do.
It'll be a 5-game series, a best of 5, I should say. First team to win 3 games will advance to the Super Regional. And they'll play the winner of that regional up in Cleveland, and we'll be sure to give you some updates on that as it progresses. We'll start by giving you the lineups for the Verne Leopards. It'll be Francois at the DH in the leadoff spot. Anthony Salcedo playing second, hitting second. Diaz hitting third. Reese hitting cleanup. Perry doing the catching, hitting 5th. Hitting 6th will be Garcia. Anthony Salcedo's brother, Aiden, hitting 7th. It'll be Vogel in center field, hitting 8th. And then the shortstop, Vasica, in the 9-hole and on the mound for the Tigers. An unusual Game 1 starter, but definitely a deserving one, Jackson Tier.
Yeah, and of course, Cole, you mentioned unusual. Tier is no doubt the ace in this Trinity rotation, but he hasn't made a Friday start all year, or maybe I should say hasn't made a Game 1 start all year. He has been fantastic in his role across 2 seasons here in San Antonio, though. This season, posting a 1.2 ERA. For most of the year, he was leading the country in that category. 67.1 innings pitched so far. 96 strikeouts. He has really, really good stuff. It's going to be interesting to watch him on the mound against a team that, more than anything, comes in looking to put the ball in play with a lot of frequency.
First pitch, playoff baseball underway with strike 1. Saw Tier's numbers on your screen, as you still do. The whip below 1.85. He's had an unbelievable year. Back-to-back SCAC Pitcher of the Year. Swing and a miss. Francois quickly down 0-2.
And it's really that pitch right there. Bread and butter, that slider. Great movement on it. He has no problem starting and locating down and away from these right-handed hitters.
Pitch gets away from Lazara for a second. Ball 1. Tier began his season with a bang, striking out 34 batters in his first 2 outings. Pitch misses 2-2. Tier trying to collect his first strikeout of the postseason. High, ball 3. As Francois works his way into a full count.
Yeah, good job remaining patient right here. Not getting jumpy at all after falling behind 0-2. Sees a couple of pitches that are well outside of the zone. Tier in a battle now.
Swing and a miss. That's strike 3. First strikeout of the day for Jackson Tier. First out of this game.
Yeah, and it's a big one. Of course, Game 1 in this series, if you're Tier on the mound, we just mentioned it. This is a really good Verne offense. Pride themselves on contact, putting the ball in play. Talked to Coach Winterburn a little bit yesterday. He talked pretty extensively about complete offensive players. They can do a little bit of everything. Being able to shut the offense down early, not allow these guys to get into a rhythm, move people over, going to be important for this Trinity pitching staff.
Anthony Salcedo, the number 2 hitter from Murrieta, California, up, making his 39th appearance of the season. Swing and a miss, strike 1.
You can see it again. Another 0-2 start for Tier on the mound. He goes right back to that slider, locating it down and away.
Salcedo, a .283 hitter on the year. Takes a ball high and inside. Waves at that. That's strike 3. 2 down quickly for Jackson Tier. Back-to-back Ks.
Cole, I think the biggest thing that Jackson Tier has done this season came in weekend number 2 of the year. It was a long time ago here in San Antonio where he sat down 20 batters from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. 20 strikeouts was, I think, a new program record, at least tying a program record in that performance. But it's been a long season since then. A lot of games in the middle, and while he has been impressive, you know, we've seen him lose some control as the season's progressed, as the innings have picked up. Really sharp looking to start here, especially coming off a performance in the conference tournament where he wasn't the version of him that we're used to seeing.
Fires strike 2 to the number 3 hitter, Matthew Diaz. Diaz hitting .405 on the year, trying to get something started for Laverne. Pitch in the dirt, and it's 1-2. Diaz, a junior from Rancho Cucamonga, California, making his 41st appearance. He leads the team in several important categories. Leads the team in batting average, tied for the team lead in RBI. Pitch misses inside, 2-2. Tier trying to strike out the side in his first playoff inning of the season. Swing and a miss, that's strike 3. 3 straight sent down by Jackson Tier. We'll head to the bottom of the first next in San Antonio, 0-0 in playoff baseball. Bottom of the first inning in San Antonio, 0-0 between the Leopards and the Tigers. Trinity University starting lineup, Caleb Woodward in left field set to lead things off the first year. Jack Baker hitting behind him at shortstop. And Nick Lazare doing the catching, hitting third. That is followed by Christian Holloway, Colt Harris, Ty Preston doing DH. Kai Tinker at third base, hitting 7th, and Jack Peterson, the center fielder. Maddox McDonald in the 9-hole in right field. And then on the mound will be Chase Peterson for Laverne. Peterson making his 5th start of the year, his 11th appearance, comes in with a 1-2 record, a 5.82 ERA. Also has a save on the year, but likely not going to get that today with the start. Important to note, his longest appearance of the year, 4 innings pitched, so interesting that he's getting the start today. We'll see how it works out for Laverne.
And we spent a long time talking about Jackson Tier, and now we'll have the opportunity to talk about Chase Peterson. And I think really with both guys, you know, despite the fact that Jackson Tier is this Trinity ace, and despite the fact that Peterson hasn't thrown the most for this Laverne squad, I think both guys make a lot of sense as Game 1 starters. Of course, if you're Trinity, and this is something we haven't touched on yet, the offense has had some slow starts this year, especially in Game 1s in the later half of the season. Struggled to get going in Game 1 of the conference tournament. You know, in that kind of situation, going with your ace who's going to allow you a little bit of a break, don't need as much run support, hopefully. On the other side, though, Verne, their offense is fantastic. Batting average as a squad up over 320. There's really no concerns about a slow start with these Leopards. Going with a guy that maybe won't be able to hold this Trinity offense down all the way, it's an okay thing to do, and then you have a lot of flexibility as you move through maybe a 5-game series.
Caleb Woodward, the leadoff hitter, works himself into a 2-2 count. Woodward didn't begin the season as a regular starter, but he's definitely settled into that role. Pitch gets him, and the leadoff man aboard for Trinity.
Yeah, and looked like some sort of off-speed pitch from Peterson right there, considering the velocity, but also just wasn't a great release point. Lost that arm side, felt like he lost it a little early and just couldn't finish. Woodward down there at first base, I don't think he's feeling that one very intensely, and it's a good start for Trinity as they have some speed on the base paths early.
Woodward 12 for 15 on stolen base attempts. Baker drops down a bunt. Woodward heads for second, gets there, but the sacrifice is made. One down, runner moves to second.
And good job from Baker, not waiting around, sees a pitch that he can put down, does a good job of angling it towards the line a little bit, with Peterson, lefty, falling off the opposite direction. Just that little bit of separation between his landing spot, coming down the front of the mound and having to get to that baseball on the other side. Just enough time for Woodward to get over to second, and Trinity with an early runner in scoring position.
And it brings up Nick Lazara, one of the more dangerous hitters in this Tiger lineup. Takes a pitch high for ball one. Lazara, the full-time catcher, making his 38th start and his 38th appearance. Hitting .352 on the season. Had 5 hits and 2 home runs in the SCAC tournament, so he's been hot lately. Takes a strike to make it 1-1.
And that's a good spot on the outside part of the plate from Peterson right there. Mentioned Lazara standing in there as that 3-hole hitter. He doesn't have the power numbers on the year that I think a lot of people in San Antonio anticipated, but he got hot in that SCAC tournament. And he's one of the more dangerous hitters. Don't want to pitch him in.
Zara plays that to left. Woodward waved around. It's 1-0 Trinity. An RBI single in game 1 for Nick Lazara.
And a great start for these home Tigers. Realistically, off the bat, and the only chance at Woodward not coming across to score is if somehow Ryan Vosica out there at shortstop grew another foot and maybe skied to take this one out of the air. So softly hit over his head that if it was getting down, those outfielders in left and center were going to have to crash hard. And with the speed Woodward has on the base paths, he scored rather easily right there.
So Lazara comes up with the RBI. And it brings up the cleanup hitter, Christian Holloway. Holloway takes strike 1. A .297 hitter on the year. Has 34 RBI despite missing a couple weeks with an injury towards the middle of the year. Tied for the team lead in that category. Pitch misses. It's 1-1. Luke, this is what you want to see out of Trinity's bats early. They've been cold lately, falling behind in each of their SCAC tournament games by 3 runs or more. Not the case so far today, up by 1.
And it's a team that is capable of coming back. But of course, when you go down, you don't always come back. And that happened in 2 out of 3 of those games. And more often than not, that's going to be the case in big-time situations, playoff baseball here at the end of the season. Getting out ahead, getting on the board in general in the early going is big time. But certainly want to keep this inning going if they can.
Holloway lines it up the middle, base hit. Lazara stops at second, and there's 2 aboard for Trinity with 1 out.
And Peterson just catching too much of the plate right there. Christian Holloway is a guy that has played most of the games for this Trinity offense, but right in the middle of the conference slate, he got hurt, didn't travel for one of those weekend series. It seemed like kind of a blip in his season, but he's another guy, much like Lazara, on base in front of him, who had a good weekend in the SCAC tournament. course, one thing we talked about over the break, these are two teams in two different scheduling positions. SCIAC Conference Tournament was last weekend, so Verne continues play really quickly. Trinity, however, got a weekend off. SCIAC Tournament taking place in Cleburne, Texas 2 weekends ago, so a little bit more rest for these Tigers who have just been waiting here in San Antonio.
Got to talk to Jack Breezy about that. He said there was not a lot to do in this last week. So you can only practice for 3 hours a day, so you kind of have to find something to bide your time for the rest of it. These Tigers very excited to get going in game one. Colt Harris up to the plate for Trinity, playing second base today. Harris, a .293 hitter on the year. 7 hits in his last 8 at-bats over the last 2 games. Pitch away and in the dirt, 2-1. So Luke, going back to that point of the time off, I got to talk to Coach Dave Smith about the Tigers' schedule earlier in the year. They had a lot more midweek games this year. He talked about how that can sometimes hurt hitters, not getting into a lineup, having all that time off like they did last year, but the offense able to get into a bit more of a flow earlier this year, and that was partly because they had those midweek games. Wondering how that week off would impact them. So far it hasn't. Back-to-back base hits, already a run on the board.
Right there, Colt Harris jumping ahead in this at-bat, 2-1. Got fastball over the middle of the plate, just didn't get his foot down in time. A little bit late on it.
Harris finds the hole. Runner being stopped at third. Lazara has to track back, but the bases are loaded with 1 out.
And just enough of an adjustment from Colt Harris right there. Scorched one foul down the right field line into the netting here at the Trinity Baseball Stadium. Then 1 pitch later, gets the foot down, sends it through the hole in the right side. It's Coach Deering down there at third base, who very wisely holds Lazara, 3-hole hitter, but the catcher doesn't run particularly well. Don't want to run into out number 2 here in an inning that looks very promising.
Brings up Ty Preston, the senior from Pearland, Texas. Only making his 17th appearance of the year. Had a nagging quad injury. He's back from that now. Sprays that foul, 0-1. In the time he's been in the lineup, Preston's a .333 hitter. A .444 on base percentage. Gets the start at DH today. Works with the bases loaded. Strike called on the outside edge. He's down 0-2.
Yeah, and a beautiful pitch from Chase Peterson right there. Goes to that breaking ball. Hits it right on the outside portion of the plate. And Peterson, who was trigger happy on first offering, deciding to try and be patient, and backfires just a little bit for him.
Tries it again, but misses. It's 1-2.
Yeah, Peterson wisely stretching the zone a little bit more right there. See if he can get Ty Preston in the box to chase at a pitch in a similar location, but nothing doing that time.
Fouled off. Preston stays alive.
Yeah, and way ahead in this at-bat, 0-2, now to 1-2. Not a position for Chase Peterson on the mound where you can really afford to lose Ty Preston right here. Infield, the corner's playing in, but double play depth in the middle.
Tigers already a run on the board, trying to add on. Fouled back, and he continues to work this at-bat.
And that breaking ball out of Chase Peterson's hand. Hard to tell from our vantage point, the drop or movement on it, but we can tell velocity pretty readily, and it's not coming in very hot. Imagine tied into that is probably a loopier offering, so hard to get barrel on that offering.
Into left. It's a hit. 1 run comes in. The other runner stops at third. It's 2-0 Trinity. Base is still loaded. An RBI single for Ty Preston.
Preston does exactly what you want to as a hitter in this situation. Falls behind 0-2, goes to 1-2, fights a couple of pitches off, fights off those loopy breaking balls from Peterson, maybe frustrates the pitcher a little bit. He goes to a little bit of a firmer delivery. Preston shortens up, sends it the opposite way, and things continue here for Trinity in the bottom of the first.
Base is still loaded. 4 consecutive singles for Trinity. It's netted them 2 runs. And it'll warrant a meeting It'll be a collective infield meeting, and Luke, you think it's an important one. This is an important inning for Laverne, trying to keep this a 2-run game. Jackson Tier, you don't want to give him a lead of any kind, but a multi-run lead, it could be tough for the Leos going forward.
Yeah, especially with how sharp he looked in the top of the first. Really dealing, didn't have too much of an issue with any of the Leopard hitters he faced. But for Laverne and Chase Peterson, realistically, they're not in the worst spot in the world. Of course, this offense, we've talked about it, great batting average. And with 1 out on the board, you're a hard-hit ground ball away from getting out of this inning with a double play. But of course, you're right. Keeping this thing as close as possible, 2-0 as it currently stands, really going to be vital for this Laverne squad.
Head coach Scott Winterburn heads back to the dugout. Everybody else will go back to their positions as the meeting is adjourned. And you'd think that's exactly what they were talking about, trying to pitch low, get this ground ball, and end this inning. Chase Peterson trying to leave things where they stand at 2-0. He'll face the third baseman, Kai Tinker. Tinker, a senior from Simi Valley, California. Hitting .270 on the year. He has a hit in 4 straight games. Fouled off, 0-1.
This is a Trinity squad, Trinity coaching staff, I should say, that loves to play with their lineup and loves to play with matchup advantages. Already, we've seen it a lot here in San Antonio. Very, very heavy from this right side batter's box. Kai Tinker again stepping up to face left-handed hitter.
Ball gets away. Runner comes in and is safe. 3-0 Tigers on the wild pitch.
And that one, more than anything, getting away from Peterson. Spiked well out in front of the plate. Behind the dish, Nathan Perry looked like he did everything he realistically could. Got a little bit of a piece of that one. But a lot of real estate behind home plate, a brick backstop that has certainly come into play many times here in San Antonio, and wouldn't be shocked if it does at some point in this series. That one got off to the left just enough that it didn't ricochet straight back to Perry.
Something you always have to be worried about in this ballpark. We've seen it numerous times this year. Holloway able to slide in safely to make it 3-0, and the other runners advance as well. Second and third with 1 out. Ground ball. Nobody covering first, and he's safe. Tinker slides in, a run scores, and here comes another one, also safe. Heads up play by Preston, and it's 5-0 Trinity.
Things are going just about as perfectly as they could for this Trinity squad right now. This one starts with Kai Tinker, just heads up play from the 5th-year senior, recognizing no one's covering. He's in a foot race with the pitcher. He goes down to the ground and just barely sneaks in there ahead of Peterson. And then on the other side of the diamond, again, very heads up base running, this time on the more aggressive side of things, sending Preston, recognizing the delay over there at first, and Trinity adds a couple more.
Now 5-0 after the miscommunication. Brings up Jack Peterson. Squares up to bunt, pulls it back for strike 1. I think the other thing you have to think about that makes those 2 runs hurt just that much more is that was the double play ball you would have wanted had that runner still been at first. Instead, miscommunication at the base results in 2 more runs in this game. Not over yet, but definitely at a big margin as Peterson hacks at that to make it 0-2.
Yeah, and realistically, this one is very close to entering interesting territory. 5-0 ball game in the very, very early going. A Trinity offense that looks pretty solid right now. And a guy on the mound in Jackson Tier who, based on his start, is going to make it a difficult game for Laverne to get back into. Of course, there's a lot of baseball left to be played, so can't say anything too early, but need to keep this thing right where it is, limit the damage, and just start finding a way to come away with outs at whatever expense.
Peterson ropes that into right field. Tinker stops at second. It's first and second for Trinity. It's the 9-hole hitter. Maddox McDonald will have an opportunity to add on for Trinity.
And this has been a really long inning, so it feels like the perfect time to note Jackson Tier just made his way down to the bullpen from this Trinity dugout, trying to avoid getting cold. Of course, it's a beautiful day here in San Antonio. It's going to get warmer as we continue, and with the turf, it's really going to be cooking down there on the field. Chase Peterson in a tough spot for that reason, but it's been a long inning so far, and on the other side, Tier's just been sitting in that dugout waiting for his turn.
Tier throwing, trying to stay loose as there's some sort of delay by the Verne dugout. Third baseman Anthony Salcedo heads over, and now he runs back.
And it looked like it was the catcher, Perry, who made his way over to the dugout. Currently, he's messing with his wristband, making sure that him and his pitcher are on the right page, or he's getting the correct calls being relayed in from the dugout.
Everything seems good now. Still one down in the inning, first and second for Maddox McDonald, getting the start in right today. Fouls that back into the screen. McDonald, a .314 hitter on the year, .457 slugging. This is his first year at Trinity. He began his college career at Division I Louisiana Lafayette, which is where former Trinity Tiger Jack Martinez currently is. Outside, 1-1.
And again, that big looping breaking ball. A fairly easy take, I have to imagine, for these hitters, and especially when it's outside of the zone. Opportunity to watch it for a long way. Difficult to actually put the barrel on the bat. We've seen it get fouled off quite a few times already in the home half of the first. That's a reason, or part of the reason, why this current at bat sits at 2-1, and again, the hitter has the advantage.
Big swing and a miss, and it's 2-2.
And a good spot down and away. Peterson, a couple times here in this half, has gotten into these two-strike counts, has just struggled to finish from there. Reminder, the only out on the board really given to them. Sack bunt from Jack Baker.
Hit in the air to center, and it falls. Tinker had to hold up, seeing if it was going to be caught or not, so he stays at third, and the bases are loaded with one out again.
And another offering that realistically feels like it just catches too much of the plate in a two-strike situation. There haven't been a lot of softly hit balls from this Trinity offense. Maybe that one off the bat of Kai Tinker to the right side of the infield where there are some guys just caught out of position a little bit. Outside of that, it's been a lot of solid contact that has Trinity hitting around already here in the first.
And the lineup flips over in the first inning. Caleb Woodward up. Takes strike one low. Now this has been the stat line since Nick Lazara hit. He was the three-hitter. Base hit, base hit, base hit, base hit. I don't know what you want to score Tinkers as. I'm assuming that's also a base hit, even though some guys were out of position. Swing and a miss from Woodward. It's 0-2. Base hit, base hit.
Yeah, I think it would be a base hit going to Tinker as well. So a lot of success for a team that we just talked about has not started all that hot in some recent game ones.
Close pitch. Peterson doesn't get the call.
Yeah, an unfortunate break for Peterson right there. Jumps ahead in this at-bat, makes a really competitive pitch. Nice idea to go with a fastball up. Elevated in a really dangerous spot, but didn't get Woodward to start his hands.
Woodward hits that deep and far to right field, and it falls. One hops the wall, and it's a ground rule double for Caleb Woodward. Two runners come in, 7-0 Trinity in the first inning.
And Cole, the wind is blowing in here just a little bit, and you can see the flags out in center field. If it wasn't for that, this ball game might have just been broken wide open if you don't already consider a 7-0 scoreline to be the case. But what was very nearly a grand slam right there to deep right center field is going to end the day for Chase Peterson, it looks like.
He'll head back to the dugout, only recording 1 out in this game. It is 7-0 Trinity as we take a break on Tiger Network. Pitching change in San Antonio. The new arm in for Verne. It's Kyle Noel. Noel comes in with an 0-1 record, making his 9th appearance of the season. ERA over 11. He'll have an opportunity to lower that in this appearance. He faces Jack Baker, runners at second and third. This already a 7-0 game. As Noel fires strike one. And at this point, Luke, you'd think opportunity to eat innings for different guys. They're going to need to get through this game one. They could still possibly come back, but ultimately probably trying to save your best arms for games 2 and 3.
Yeah, and it was something I almost referenced earlier, was trying to avoid it because, yeah, there is a lot of baseball left to be played, and you don't know what's going to happen here in game one. Scorcher down that third baseline. Max McDonald leaping out of the way, showing off some of his athleticism right there and some hustle out of a pretty excitable Trinity bullpen at the moment.
Baker takes that pitch up and in. That was Brandon Morio running out to get that baseball. That's something that we've seen Ethan Clark do here throughout the season. The bullpen very supportive of their comrade coming back with a baseball. Mission accomplished. 1-2 pitch to Baker. Looped. And it falls. One runs in. Woodward safe at third. 8-0. A snowman on the board for the Tigers.
With potentially at least 3 more games to play for Verne if they want to come back and win this series, and of course they do, then they're going to need a lot of more innings, right? Best case scenario, you get done in 3. I don't think that was ever a likely situation for these two squads. A top 20, borderline top 15, I guess it is a top 15 matchup. Number 14, Verne, number 13, Trinity on our hands right now. But a lot more innings, and it's reminiscent of what Trinity did or faced a couple of years ago. 2022, they played in this same situation, a 5-game, 2-team regional at the University of Texas, Dallas. And won games 1 and 2. Game 3 very, very quickly got out of hand. The Comets out of UT Dallas put up 32 runs. But effectively, it became a bullpen game where a couple of guys who were getting hit around were asked to just stay out there on the mound, eat those innings, find outs where you could. Don't worry about those runs, because ultimately we have more baseball to be played, and Trinity turned around and won that series in the next game. The same thing, same mindset has to be present for this Verne bullpen. Go out there, get the job done, get us to the finish line in this one. Let's go get the next one.
Tigers were up 2-0 in that best-of-5 regional. They said, okay, this one's not going our way. They were able to save their pitching, and they ended up winning Game 4, as you said. Pitch misses away to Lazara to make it 2-2. It was Matthew Mackey and Jonathan Newman who were asked to just take the bullet, take one for the team on that. We'll see who's asked to do that for Verne. Lazara hits this high into center. Woodward tags, he's headed home. The throw not in time. Make it 9-0 for Trinity. What a start for the Tigers.
And the benefit of having a runner on third for Lazar right there is still opportunity to get a job done. It's been a lot of consecutive hits for this Trinity offense, but can't complain about notching another run. 9-0 ball game at the moment. Eventually, this first inning is going to have to come to a close. You can't call it after just one in the books. And opportunity to maybe get Jackson Tier back on the mound sooner rather than later probably doesn't sound too bad for this Trinity team.
Pitch gets away for a second, but runner stays at first. Christian Holloway up for the second time today. He's 1 for 1 with a single. Now 2 outs in this inning, runner on first. Pitch inside, 2-0. That's always a stat line you want to see if you're an offense. 9 hits, 9 runs.
Pretty much the definition of efficiency right there. And I don't know, pretty crazy to think about the willingness of this coaching staff at the beginning of the inning to just get on the scoreboard, right? Played small ball, Woodward hit by pitch, puts him on first. Jack Baker, just move him over. We'll take it out in the early going, trying to get the offense going, and that certainly is what has happened.
Holloway ahead, 3-0. Strike called.
Yeah, 3-1, what we just talked about, just trying to eat outs and innings at this point. Even a 3-1 count, dangerous hitter at the plate, no reason to not come right at him in a 9-0 ball game.
Runner goes, fouled off, so Baker will have to jog back. You got the aggressiveness by Trinity, running plays already in a 9-0 game. Full count, 2 outs. Runner on first. Grounder finds the hole. Baker goes to third. He'll stop there. Runners at the corners. Another base hit for Trinity, their 10th of the game.
And the rich just get richer, Cole. Great approach from Christian Holloway right there. Good job on the mound. Well, falling behind 3-0, getting it to 3-1, getting it to 3-2 with a nice breaking ball that Holloway just barely got a piece of. And then, like we just said, going right at a hitter in this circumstance, not the end of the world. Trinity just keeps winning these one-on-one matchups.
Strike call to Colt Harris. He's 1 for 1 with a base hit. Works with the runners at the corners, 2 down in the inning. It was already a 9-0 game. Pitch misses inside, 1-1. First pitch of this game was at noon. It is currently 12:38 Central Time. First inning that has lasted nearly 40 minutes. Harris hits that hard to center field. Vogel back, he makes the catch. And the inning is over, but not before Trinity does a lot of damage. 9-0. As this Tiger crowd applauds their baseball team. Home playoff game for the first time in quite a while. They're making their fans happy. Welcome back to San Antonio, Texas. 9-0 Trinity. It's a very different game from when Verne was last up to bat. Pitch from Tier misses inside. It's 2-0. Logan Reese up to bat now. Takes strike one. Reese hitting cleanup today, trying to notch the first hit for Verne. Jackson Tier struck out all three batters in the first inning as he fires strike two there.
You know, the home half of the first, from my perspective, changes the complexion for how Jackson Tier now can attack his outing on the mound.
Fly ball center field. Peterson handles it for out number one.
Of course, we mentioned the ERA and how good it's been, but with 9 runs of support at this point in the year, what you care about most is getting out of games the most efficiently. It's the same thing now for Verne, trying to save some of their more high leverage arms by getting other guys to eat innings. Now, for Jackson Tier, with 9 runs of support, you can continue to just attack these hitters. You can afford for them to be putting the ball in play, shorten at-bats for yourself, and hopefully not have to rely on the bullpen as much as you might otherwise need to.
Catcher Nathan Perry up to bat now, the sophomore from Irvine. It's a ground ball, softly to Harris, throw to first in time, and quickly 2 down in the inning.
That's exactly what we're talking about right there. 1-1 count. Sir, the first delivery was outside the zone, comes right back, puts some pitches over the plate, forces the hitter to swing the bat. Soft contact, playable in the infield, and it's a quick second out here.
Brings up the first baseman, Garcia. Noah Garcia hitting .320 on the year. One of several Verne Leopards hitting over 300. His offense definitely capable of scoring some runs, capable of coming back from a 9-0 deficit. We'll see. Line to center, and there's the first base runner for the Leos.
But again, things remain consistent for Tier. 1-1 count. Again, just putting something over the middle of the plate, something that looks good to these hitters. For the Leos, they'll certainly be happy with hit number 1 of the day, but it comes with 2 outs and a lot of damage that still needs to be done.
Strike one to the other Salcedo. This is Aiden. Aiden Salcedo, a sophomore, following in his brother's footsteps, playing for Verne. Check swing, but a strike called. Salcedo hitting .278 on the year, but was an impact player as a first year immediately. 45 games played, 24 RBIs, and a .278 batting average in his first year with Verne. Pitch in the dirt, runner caught in between. Lazara throws to first, but it's offline as he's back safely.
Yeah, it's a tough one right there. For Lazara, he recognizes the runner freezing on the base paths. I think he's just uncertain about which way he's going to break. Usually you don't want to throw behind a guy, but considering where he was on the base paths, and of course, doesn't even matter.
Swing and a miss, that's strike 3, and that ends the inning. Another quick one for Jackson Tier as we head to the bottom of the second in San Antonio. It's 9-0 in game 1. Bottom of the second, Ty Preston set to lead things off for Trinity, up 9-0. First pitch on the outside edge for strike 1. Preston 1 for 1 in his only at bat. Also scored a run on a very heads-up play. Verne caught in between towards first base. That's fouled into the Tiger bullpen, no play. But a very heads-up play to get the 5th run of the inning for Trinity. Caught in between, he had some extra time. He's at third base, and he says, hey, I'm just going to go. Forces the issue, scores the run, and the inning continued longer after that.
Yeah, and those are certainly some situations where you can look back on them, and you can be equally disappointed in the outcome. In that instance, in the first inning, it certainly paid off for this Trinity team. And man, is it good for these Tigers to have Ty Preston back in the lineup.
As he grounds that in the hole down the third base side. Second base hit of the game for Preston. He's 2 for 2. You talk about, man, is it good to have him in the lineup. He came back for a little bit after injuring his quad in the first 2 weeks of the year, but then re-aggravated the injury. Frustrating experience for him, but he seems to be back and better than ever. Referenced it when he came up to bat for the first time, hitting .333 on the year. And you know, when you get the start at DH, your coaches trust you to hit the ball, because that's the only reason you're in the lineup. That's what happened to him today. Taken out of his usual spot at left field. Pitch misses, 2-0.
And of course, this is a Trinity team that, as a squad, is hitting .280. And, you know, maybe, Cole, at the end of this one, that'll be up a couple of ticks. But Ty Preston, a guy, in the limited action he has seen this year because of that injury, he's been a pretty solid presence at the plate. 16 games played, 13 starts. He's hit .333 coming into this one. So one of only a few names on the roster up above 300. Even in the small sample size, you can see it translating here.
Kai Tinker, the 7-hole hitter, up to bat for the second time. He's 1 for 1. Able to dive safely into first base with the miscommunication over there. Finds himself in a 2-1 count. Hit hard but foul. Now 2-2. As for Laverne, Kyle Noel back out there. And you would think that his job will be to stay in as long as he can and do what you said, find outs wherever he can. Already a 9-0 game, 11 hits tallied by Trinity. And that gets him. Tinker will head to first, probably not the way he would have wanted in a 9-0 game, but he does so anyways. 2 runners on for Trinity.
Yeah, and a similarly impressive start to the home half of the second. It's going to be hard to live up to the output that they saw in the first, but realistically, any additions to the lead that they already have are a real luxury at this point in the season. And even with a lot of baseball left to play, put this one further and further out of reach. And it's a real shock to be saying that so early in the ball game.
Peterson squares up to bunt, but this one gets away, and that will advance the runners for him. Second wild pitch of the game for Laverne, and things go from bad to worse.
Yeah, and it's really two completely different ends of the spectrum for these squads right now. Trinity has had pretty much everything fall their way, and Laverne, it's been the exact opposite. You've seen a couple of plays where guys just end up a step out of position, a couple of balls that kick away from Perry behind the plate. See another one right there, and hard to tell if Peterson got a piece of it. Imagine that's probably the case. But I think the law of averages is going to have something to say in this series, and both of these teams are going to come back to earth, whether that's rising or falling. I think we're going to see much more evenly played baseball over the course of the weekend.
Current schedule as it stands, game 2 and 3 will be played tomorrow, and game 4 and 5 if needed on Sunday. And I think everybody coming into this series thought that we were going to have to play baseball on Sunday, and I think that's probably still the case. Laverne still has their best arms available. Peterson grounds that to second. That'll bring in the 10th run of the game for Trinity. An RBI ground out for Jack Peterson.
And maybe not the end result that Jack Peterson wanted. A guy that struggled at the plate in the SCAC tournament, went 0 for his first 10+ at-bats. But ultimately, this point in the year, the initiative really changes. The end goal is the same. It's about putting up runs and outscoring your opponent. And right there, while he might not have been safe over at first, scratching another one doesn't hurt too much.
It's Maddox McDonald takes strike 1. Now working with just the runner on third, 1 out. We talk about the struggles at the SCAC tournament. Peterson wasn't alone. It was kind of a collective slump for Trinity offensively, who found themselves down 3-0 in all 3 of those games. Mainstay guys like Jack Baker going 1 for 14 at the plate in the SCAC tournament. Jack Peterson, you mentioned it, 0 for his first 10. Christian Holloway struggled there as well. It's a lot of guys that Trinity relies on to produce offensively that just weren't doing it.
And of course, that led to an exit of that conference tournament. Trinity not winning the SCAC, not earning an auto bid. Same story for Laverne on the other side. SCIAC won game 1 and then faced a really good Pomona-Pitzer team. Couldn't win back in, couldn't take home the championship in the SCIAC this year. But with how good that conference was all season long, and it's been proven by 3 at-large selections for Laverne, for Cal Lutheran, and for Claremont Mudd Scripps.
Grounded foul. As McDonald will have to try that again.
And clearly, these teams are all deserving, and they've had a lot of tough baseball to play.
Both of these teams coming in with similar stories. The regular season conference champions bounced in 3 games in their respective conference tournaments. Both in pretty disappointing fashion for them. 2-2 pitch inside, and that gets him. So McDonald will make the trip to first. But Verne losing their final 2 games by a combined score of 19-1. Of course, most of that in the 15-0 loss to the Pomona Pitzer. Trinity getting walked off by their rival Centenary in their final game in the SCAC tournament. Centenary, of course, would go on to get the SCAC bid. They're in Marshall playing ETBU, or in that regional at the very least. Brings up the leadoff hitter, Caleb Woodward, hitting for the 3rd time in 2 innings. First pitch misses away for ball 1.
And I believe it's Pomona Pitzer hosting in California. 2-team, 5-game series, much like the one we have on our hands here in San Antonio. And then the last of those squads, Cal Lutheran, kind of the odd man out. They got shipped outside of the region, up north. But a lot of representation for Region 10 this year, 9 total tournament teams. And the way the bracket's structured, not just in these regional and super regionals, I guess I should say not just these regionals, there's an opportunity for multiple teams to move through to the supers and then multiple teams to move from the supers to the College World Series. It would imagine that this San Antonio regional would have been paired with the East Texas Baptist Marshall regional, but that is not the case. Instead, you mentioned earlier, paired with the Cleveland, Ohio Case Western regional.
An interesting job by Division III baseball on that one. I remember I was talking to our colleague, and I dub him as the research consultant, Reed Rosales. And we're talking about the regionals happening. And I said, well, I'm focusing mostly on the ETBU one because that's probably who we're going to play next. And he said, no, they're paired, and we're paired with one in Cleveland. And I said, what? Cleveland? Really? But that's how it goes. You have 3 regionals kind of in the West region. My understanding is that the Pomona Pitzer regional is paired with the ETBU regional, and then this one is kind of the odd man out. Winner will play that Cleveland regional, and we'll see where it's played. My understanding is that depending on certain outcomes, that will impact who hosts, but certainly things to look forward to for one of these 2 teams playing in the Super.
Yeah, and I would imagine that if Case Western doesn't come out of that Cleveland regional, whoever wins here in San Antonio, even though Verne is on the road currently, they're so highly ranked. They finished really well in the regional rankings. I don't know if it'll matter who wins in place of Case Western. The winner of this series probably hosts.
Line to center. It's another base hit and another run. McDonald waved home as well. He is safe. Trinity adding on 12-0 Tigers.
I can say it again because it remains true, but the rich keep getting richer, Cole. And we've already talked about it a couple of times, and I know off air we've debated as to whether or not we bring it up. But there's been a little bit of movement in that Trinity bullpen, and considering the way this thing has continued to go, now another 3 outs off the board and another 3 runs onto the board for these Trinity Tigers. You talk about this pitching situation. Jackson Tier, who took a long break in the first and now is taking another lengthier one at the moment. He's clearly your ace. And now you're in a position where you could throw some other guys and maybe keep him alive, considering a pretty low pitch count to this point.
Jack Baker, the 2-hole hitter, up. There is some action in the Tiger bullpen. Nobody throwing yet as far as we can tell. But I think that is going through the minds of Dave Smith and Tim Scannell. You would imagine if Jackson Tier were to go the 6-7 innings that we would expect him to in a given start, he wouldn't be alive for tomorrow or Sunday, but maybe things change.
And realistically, it's so hard to tell because there's so many moving parts. I think you're mostly concerned with number of innings pitched, and then what is the bigger concern number of pitches. You know, guys can go out there and throw 9 innings and be under 100 pitches in some circumstances.
Baker hits that hard to right, caught. And there's 2 down in the inning now.
But there are other games where you go out there and you throw 7, and you know, for Joseph Shavana of these Trinity Tigers, that means probably 120 or 130 pitches. Innings pitch number isn't always indicative of the number of pitches, but another element of all this is just the taxation of getting ramped up for a start, right? The pregame that goes into things, it's a long process, and asking Tier, any starter, to do that a second time in the weekend, that's a lot of work and something that you usually don't see. A more likely scenario is that, yeah, a starter comes out early and he's available, but more than likely it's in a relief situation.
Woodward advances to second on the wild pitch. So Nick Lazara has a runner in scoring position. I think that's the other thing to consider, Luke. If you did sit him down right now, would he be available anyways? Line to left, and the catch is made. What a play by Diaz. No, the catch not made. They say the catch not made in left. Woodward scores from second. Lazara into second. It's an RBI double as it stands, but we'll see if it will. That's one of the changes in the postseason. Each coach gets 2 challenges, so we'll see if they want to use one here.
Yeah, and the corners of the outfield are tough angles, and they're really tough places to play. You can see from your vantage point at home that the area down that left and right field line, and you can at least see it down the left field line, it's the same on both sides. There's only a couple of feet, maybe 2 yards or so of turf between that foul line and the fencing. And certainly imagine that it is in the minds of those fielders as they're running hard towards that foul territory. It was a good play. It looked like full extension effort from Diaz out there in left field, but just couldn't quite hold on to maintain that catch.
Umpires huddling, seeing what they saw. Tough to tell on that replay, but it looks like you can see the ball hit the ground. I should note that there may be viewers watching this on a larger screen than we are. Our screen up here on the roof of the Bell Center, slightly smaller than maybe what viewers at home are seeing it on, so maybe you see the ball fall really easily, maybe you don't. Tough to tell.
But it does look like a home plate umpire and one of the field umpires have jogged off towards the fencing here in San Antonio. And it feels like they're taking a replay review look at this one.
As you're seeing the replay right now, umpires still conversing. I mean, it's a challenge that, you know, will have an impact on this game. Hard to tell. Currently 13-0. It would make it 12-0. Would end the inning. But either way, you get 2 of them. You might as well use it now on a close play like that. And a play that is pretty incredible by Matthew Diaz, should it stand.
Yeah, I feel like more than anything, the opportunity to get your team off the field after another long inning in San Antonio, Texas, where it is heating up as the day continues. I'm certainly starting to feel it on the roof of the Trinity Bell Center. Exposed to the elements out here. It's the sunny one. Well, I think we're both glad that that's the case. Otherwise, we would be banished inside the Bell Center, calling it from a classroom on a couple different monitors. Always a pleasure to be out here with eyes on the field.
Yeah, I'll take the heat any day of the week. We'll take the sun as they continue to look at this.
I mean, it was a little bit of a threat yesterday. Overcast for much of the day. A threat of thunderstorms. I was here at Trinity around noon. noon to 2 when Laverne had the opportunity to be on the field, get a practice in. Talked to Coach Winterburn just briefly after the fact. It looks like the umpires are coming back from their review.
And I'm assuming we'll see what the call is based on where they direct certain players.
Usually we get a point and then an indication one way or another.
Call stands. So they say that ball hit the ground. It will go down as an RBI double for Nick Lazera, and this game is 13-0.
But returning to my point, yesterday the weather wasn't great. Concerns about what it was going to look like the rest of the weekend. It is beautiful today, but also concerns with ability to get on the field amidst some thunder and lightning here in San Antonio. But there were no issues for Laverne. They got a full practice in yesterday, so they've had the opportunity to play on this field. And of course, always a little bit of a threat when you're venturing out onto turf. Doesn't always play the same. Certainly doesn't play the same as grass. Hasn't had a real impact here today outside of that last play, and even then feels like that's more a result of the unique aspects of the field here at Trinity.
Holloway fouls that back in the screen to make it 0-2. Trinity up 13-0. Shades of their performance against McMurray, a game they won 20-8. Notched 24 hits in that game, their most since, I believe, 2017. 0-2 pitch away, and it's 1-2. Luke, they're on pace to shatter that mark. We'll see if this pace keeps up. But either way, a fantastic offensive performance by Trinity, up 13-0. Out hitting Laverne 13-1. Holloway trying to keep it going. 1-2 pitch. Popped up near us, catchable, and not made. Slid out of the way of our direction. I thought we were going to have one, Luke.
I was excited for just a second. In the catch radius, for sure. Got some camera equipment up here. Would have made it a little difficult. Don't want to knock anything over. Got to keep the broadcast rolling. Wasn't going to risk it, especially so early on.
Pitch inside, 2-2. Of course, our primary focus when that happens is probably guarding the camera, I would think. I think that's what our executive producer, Josh Michigemba, would like of us in that situation.
Yeah,
I also really want to catch the ball. That's the other thing.
Important clarification. That's what he would like to hear. That's what he would like to hear. Is that what he's getting? I don't know. I can't guarantee it.
Grounded off the leg. Nobody covering the bag. Holloway is safe, but you would think the concern to Noel on the mound. He's walking it off, and I would assume they're going to come out and check on him. That was pretty hard hit off his leg.
Yeah, and based on the sound, it was a pretty healthy thud, and you can tell he's feeling it, doubled over behind the mound right now. And it will be a visit from head coach and looks like an athletic trainer. Christian Holloway is no slouch with the bat in his hands. One of the bigger power threats on this squad. Perhaps the biggest power threat on this Trinity roster. In fact, 8 home runs on the year does pace the Tigers. And unfortunately for Noel on the mound, all of that was channeled right at his foot.
It looks like he's going to try a few warm-up pitches, see if he can go. Now, you could hear an audible ooh from everybody in the crowd, and I was mentally thinking it even though I didn't say it on the air. We'll see if he's good enough to go. Everybody's heading back, and it looks like he'll stay in there. So in a 13-0 game, understanding his role right now is to eat innings. He's going to continue to do that. He'll face Colt Harris. Harris 1 for 2 today. Flew out the last time he was up. He's also singled. Works with 2 outs and runners at the corners, trying to add on to what is already a 13-0 game. Pitch away, 1-0. It doesn't look like Noel's grimacing or feeling any signs of pain. Sure, it's hurting a little bit, but he, at the very least, seems to be fine.
Yeah, and I think the hope more often than not on those is that it does catch you on the foot. A little bit more protection on the cleat, especially if you can get it closer to the base of the foot. And of course, he doesn't have any control over that. But anytime it hits you on the body, you know, that one was hard hit enough that it can cause some real issues.
Harris to second. They go the short way, and that ends the inning. Trinity tacks on another few runs. It's 13-0 Tigers in game one. We head to the top of the third next in San Antonio. Welcome back to San Antonio. Strike one fired by Jackson Tier here in the top of the third inning. Center fielder Vogel up to bat now for the first time today. Strike two from Tier, who looks pretty sharp coming out of another long break. And Luke, I think that's something we were talking about, the debate, whether you take out Jackson Tier, how long do you make this start, as he has to be kind of cold having those two long innings off.
Well, it is a weird conversation to have, and I don't know, it seems like it's always dependent on the circumstances in which you're playing. Talked about the weather here in San Antonio, and in a quite literal sense, hard to imagine that he is cold out there. It's warm, and of course he's got a little bit of reprieve in the shade of this Trinity dugout.
Didn't look cold on that pitch. Another strikeout for Jackson Tier, his fifth through 2.1. Brings up the 9-hole hitter. Takes strike one. That's the shortstop, Vasika. I want to talk about players who've made an impact in their first year. Ryan Vasika, first on that list, as he proves my point by hitting a ball hard into center field. Second hit of the day for Verne. Vasika, currently a sophomore, making his 42nd appearance of the year, hitting .366. But he hit .308 as a first year in 49 games played, 24 RBIs that year as well. That's something I got to talk to Coach Winterburn about. Development of first years. He said they work on developing all players, but he believes they develop them in a way where if you're really good right away, you get the opportunity to show that and get the opportunity to make the most of your chance. That's what several first years have done. Vasika last year, and then of course Urquidy, who I'm sure we'll see at some point in this series, starting for Verne.
And I mean, it's an interesting conversation with Vasika for those reasons, but for some other ones, I think stereotypically, and maybe a little too traditionally, people look at the 9-hole hitter and they assume a weaker guy in the order maybe moves pretty well, probably more so in there for defensive reasons. I mean, you anticipate that your shortstop is going to be a pretty solid defensive player, but that's not the reason Mosika's down in that 9 hole. No, hitting 366 in the Skyac, nothing to laugh at. Very, very impressive offensive player, and with the offensive philosophy this team has, no surprise they hit him there to get this 1, 2, 3 portion of the lineup into really prime territory.
Speaking of this 1, 2, 3 portion, Francois up for the second time today. Went around a swing and a miss, and he strikes out for the second time in 2 at-bats. The 6th strikeout of the game for Jackson Tier.
6 strikeouts in now 10 batters faced is not too shabby for Jackson Tier. More so along the lines of those early season performances we were talking about, striking 20 out against the University of Wisconsin Whitewater, a top 10 team in the country, I believe a top 5 team in the country at the moment, according to D3 Baseball, and a team that is also hosting a regional now in the postseason.
Pitch misses, makes it 2-0. Talk about Tier's early performances. Mentioned it earlier, struck out 34 batters in his first 2 starts. Slowed down a little bit after he injured his bicep, though. Started a game against Schreiner, took only his 2nd loss in his Trinity career. Gave up 1 run in the first inning. Trinity shut out, so that gave him the loss. But it was a game where he was limited in his ability to throw his slider. That pitch finds the strike zone to make it 2-2. Bicep straining, couldn't really make that pitch, get that arm action he wanted. So, you know, he still only gave up 1 run through 4 against Schreiner, only throwing everything but sliders, which is his best pitch. Grounded softly to third. Tinker makes the throw in time, and it ends the inning. We're through the top half of the third. We'll head to the bottom half next on Tiger Network. It's 13-0 in game 1. New pitcher in for Laverne. It's Ian Wong, the senior from Monterey Park, California, making his 12th appearance of the year. Comes in with an ERA of 6.75 and 6.2 innings pitched. As we've discussed with several of the other arms that have entered this game, Luke, his job is to eat innings. He'll try and eat the third at the very least.
And it's been an elusive first out for Laverne. All three leadoff hitters have reached base for this Trinity offense, and doesn't get any easier against Ty Preston, who is already 2 for 2 in this ball game and swinging a hot bat as he's been inserted back into this offense.
Preston 2 for 2 with 2 base hits. Takes a strike to make it 2-1. Trinity already with 14 hits on the game. Fitting that head football coach, Coach Urban, is in attendance. Pitch inside, misses. Brings the count to 3-1. That's one thing the Tigers have not done today, is walked. Walks haven't been the issue for Laverne. Tigers have just been swinging hot bats.
Yeah, 14 hits on the board, a couple of free passes handed out in the form of hit by pitch. I think 3 to this point in the game. But there's our first.
Takes ball 4, heads to first base. And it brings up Kai Tinker. Tinker 1 for 1. He took one of those hit by pitches that you mentioned, but he's also singled in this game.
You know, we've talked a lot about pitching. We've talked a lot about eating innings, and it hasn't ventured into what is a really fairly interesting topic at this portion of the year. Every form of NCAA playoffs has it. It takes a different impact in every different scenario, but there's roster limitations. Of course, visiting teams can only travel with so many players, and trying to even the playing field, the NCAA puts that limit on both teams. So Trinity, even though they are the home team, they're hosting this, they can only have a certain number of players dressed in the dugout to match the number that Laverne brought with them. Of course, usually when you're at home, you have the benefit of a lot of arms at your disposal. You know, maybe you travel with a couple more if the program can afford it when you're on the road over the course of the regular season. But here at the end of the road, it's a real discrepancy between the number of pitchers you bring and the number of hitters. You just hope your guys are good on offense, because you'd rather have more hitters out there in the bullpen, or excuse me, more pitchers out there in the bullpen, and than a shortage of innings that you're going to need at the end of the day.
Tinker will head to first base. Preston heads to second. Still no outs on the board for Jack Peterson. Peterson 1 for 2 today. Had an RBI ground out the last time he was up. He's also singled. Ian Wong trying to get the first out of this third inning. Game that's already gotten away from his Leopards. Delivery and strike 1. We talked about the slump that Peterson had in that SCAC tournament, 0 for 10, 0 for his first 10, I should say. Takes pitch outside to make it 1-1. But he's been 3 for his last 35 at the plate. After starting really hot, he was hitting well over 300 for most of the year. That's cooled off, but trying to get back into it, and he's going to need to if the Tigers are going to make a run. One of their key players offensively.
Yeah, and there's been, you know, a real increase in strikeout frequency, which is part of the concern for sure. He's a guy that at 6'4", swinging it as a left-handed hitter, he can do a lot of damage, but he has to put the ball in play, and he's just struggled to do so a little bit.
Lined, and a fair ball down the right field line. 1 run comes around. Here comes another. Hesitation at third. We'll see if it costs him. It does not, as Kai Tinker is in to make it 15-0. A 2 RBI double for Jack Peterson, and maybe that'll get him going.
And more or less the break or the bounce that he probably needed puts this one right down that first base foul line, just barely stays in fair territory and proves to cause a little bit of an issue out there in right field. Already talked about it once. The fencing not too far off those foul lines, and this baseball, as it's headed toward foul territory and catches that railing, dies. Logan Reese had a good beat on it, just had to change his trajectory in trying to field that one, and it allows another runner to come across for Trinity.
Maddox McDonald takes strike one, works with the runner on second, nobody out, and now I think the discussion needs to continue about what will happen with Jackson Tier. He will make his way to the bullpen right now. We'll see if that means that he will throw to stay hot or if he's going to take a seat.
Yeah, and the first indication, based on the greeting he's getting, he's making his rounds, and battery mates are getting high fives, and there is someone up and fully throwing. You imagine his day's probably done.
Swing and a miss, makes it 1-2. So now the question, you would assume that he's not going to make another start in game 4 or 5 or whatever that is. Does he make a relief appearance, and when would that be? Do you throw him tomorrow if you have a chance to close this thing out? Or do you save him for potentially game 4 or 5? These are the questions that Dave Smith and Tim Scannell will have to ponder tonight as they reflect on what you would assume would be a 1-0 series lead, being up 15-0, but hey, you never know. D3 baseball, things happen.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, now he leaves this one less than 50 pitches on the day. It's a really, really good number. Reserve probably another 50 or so. But it's also, you have to think about it. Things scale, right? The weight or the intensity of a pitch, when it's number 75, number 80, maybe number 90 on a day, it's a lot more taxing than number 50. And you have to think about how that kind of exponential increase occurs in regards to tax on an arm as an outing continues. He didn't go that deep. So while he did throw 50, and you have to account for that, probably none of those were all that taxing. Again, it's just coming down to how do you prepare for a start? How taxing was the preparation for this game, and how soon can he turn around and maybe do it again?
Hit to center and caught. Peterson stays where he is, 1 down in the inning. I think the other thing you have to consider, he only allowed 2 hits, so not a lot of high stress innings in there, and that can be something that also impacts, I guess, how much you work in your start.
Absolutely. But it feels like we have to go back to something we talked about earlier. Big reason why Jackson Tier starting this game was a move Trinity probably made was because the offense hasn't gotten going on game 1s and a lot of the more recent series or weekends. The other side, well, Verne hasn't put up any runs, only 2 hits so far. They've only played 3 innings. It's still a really good offense. It's just been overshadowed in a game where Trinity got hot early on. And we mentioned how, you know, not going with one of their primary starters is something they could afford to do for that reason. Of course, we didn't see this as the outcome of the game, but what that leaves on the table is 4 more games potentially to be played in this series where you have your number 1 starters available to you still.
Pitch misses, and it's 1-2. Talk about those number 1 starters. Gerald Terry probably at the top of the list, 62.1 innings pitched, though he got hurt 2 weeks ago. Start against CMS, only threw 2.1 innings, was not available for the SCIAC tournament, probably a big reason why Verne fell short. Fouled off, Woodward stays alive. So I already talked to Coach Winterburn, and he said that Gerald Terry will be available this weekend. We'll see in what capacity that is. I didn't get that out of him. And of course, Nico Urquidy has been phenomenal as a first year for Verne. He'll start at some point this weekend. Pitch misses, 2-2 to Woodward. So they still have their primary 1 and 2 starters, and then obviously a third one available should they need it. But Verne obviously down 1-0, you would think, in a position to make that not the case with their high leverage arms still available.
And it's always a little awkward talking in this capacity, especially in the context of where we are in this baseball game. It's still just the home half of the third. There are a lot of innings left, but it seems safe. It would take a truly miraculous comeback from Verne. Of course, this offense is really good, and they're capable of scoring 15 runs, but at this point in the season, games like this in the NCAA tournament, you anticipate that opposing teams who have also earned the right to be here have the capacity, they have the tools to really put a slow to any offense that gets sparked.
2 down in the inning after Woodward is sent down.
Because of that, likely a little bit too large of a hill to overcome.
Jack Baker up for the 4th time today. Has a base hit and a sacrifice bunt in this game. Peterson still waiting on second. Baker rips that into left field, back and falling at the wall. Another ground rule double and another run for Trinity. It's 16-0.
And Cole, the ball isn't particularly carrying out of here in San Antonio at the moment. A slight breeze, but those flags out in center field are dead still. We've seen 2 balls ripped fairly deep into right and left center gaps, respectively. Balls that, as the weekend continues, we might anticipate leaving the ballpark.
Brings up Nick Lazara. Lazara already 2 for 2 today. He takes ball 1. Lazara's parents are in attendance today, but their dog Frank is not. He's been known to come to certain games. A little hot for him today, even though they're sitting under the shade of the tree behind home plate. Also, apparently there was a sign that said no dogs allowed, which I think an exception should be made for Frank should they decide to bring him, but we'll see. I don't know how stingy the NCAA is on dogs, but
yeah, and it's hard to tell. Is that an NCAA rule? Is it Seth Asbury? Of course, shout out Seth Asbury.
Absolutely.
Tournament director, facility director here in San Antonio at Trinity University. Garnered that shout out on the selection show from the NCAA. Responsible for this beautiful field. It's being played on at the moment.
Of course, the reason Trinity hasn't hosted in years past, because they had a field where they would have had to take care of it. Would have been difficult. But now the turf field, recently installed last year, they put in a bid to host. They got it. All this coming together for this university. It was funny talking to Dave Smith earlier. He talked about, he's had 15 regionals, and this was the first one he got to wake up in his own bed.
Well, he also mentioned his story about 2019, where he apparently single-handedly went through the process to put in the bid. Maybe we'll continue this story when we come back.
Strike 3. Lazara didn't like it, but it's 16-0, so I guess he'll deal with it. As we head to the 4th inning, Verne up to bat when we come back, and Luke's story will continue. Welcome back. Another inning here of Tiger baseball, hosting Laverne in this game 1 of the NCAA Regional. Matthew Diaz leads off this inning for Laverne. Top of the 4th, 16-0 Trinity, and a new pitcher in for the Tigers. It's Zach Balbin making his first appearance of this tournament. Jackson Tier going 3 innings, only allowing 2 hits, no walks, and no runs. One pitch for Balbin. Line to center. Peterson has a read and a catch. 1 down in the inning.
And that's a good piece from Diaz right there. And I think that's one of the things that you chance in a scenario like this. Of course, Tier exits and, you know, keeping his pitch count to a minimum in game 1 where you could potentially see him throw tomorrow. And I imagine he's certainly in the mix if you get to day 3 on Sunday. That's a luxury. Balbin has been good, especially in the back half of the year, but he's not one of the higher leverage guys out of this Trinity bullpen. I think you run the risk of a Laverne team that's offensively been kept in check so far, finding a way to get the bats going a little bit. It would obviously be a big boost if they can score a couple of runs as a consolation, but more than anything, opportunity to swing the bat well here in game 1 and let that carry over into the future is certainly a very large consolation for the Leopards.
Reese gets a base hit, and it brings up the catcher Perry, who's 0 for 1 with a ground out to second. Zach Balbin, one of a few Tigers from California, facing a team from the LA area who has pretty much every single player on the roster that is from California. I believe there were 3 that weren't. But Balbin, one of the few Tigers not from Texas, from California, making his 10th appearance. Lined but foul. Comes in with an ERA of 4.34. His last appearance was against UMHB. Pitched 3.1 innings, allowed a run, and 2 strikeouts. Hit hard and foul past the Laverne bullpen.
Realistically for Balbin, I don't think the story, the assignment is any different from what it turned into for Tier, right? With this much run support on the board, it's okay to see guys piece you up a little bit. It means you're doing your job of pitching to contact as he does right there.
McDonald under that. He makes the catch. Throw back to first, offline, not in time, as they nearly caught the runner in the middle, 2 down in the inning.
Yeah, and off the bat, that one looked like it was sure to get down in that right center field gap. Just a little bit late on the swing was Nathan Perry right there, and that ball just continued to fade towards Maddox McDonald out in right field. And with the speed that this Trinity outfield has, ultimately not a very difficult play and almost a double play ball as in the infield, Logan Reese took off. He liked the trajectory of that ball. He was all the way at second base, though, when it got caught.
Lined and hit hard into the gap. McDonald can't get it, and it finds the wall. Runner held at third. The first run not in for Laverne yet. It's second and third with 2 down in the inning.
But realistically, while there are 2 outs on the board, it's been 4 very hard-hit baseballs, 4 barrels in this inning. And again, Balbin can't be too upset about that because 2 of them have gone his way, and a run has not come across yet. Just needs 1 more ball to bounce his way and get back into the dugout.
So Noah Garcia gets the double, and now Aiden Salcedo, third baseman, comes up to bat as Lazara will have a meeting with his new pitcher. Balbin's gotten 2 outs, and it's probably what he wants in this situation just because he's throwing strikes, but some loud outs. There are situations where those don't go his way, as we saw with Noah Garcia on that last at-bat. He'll face Aiden Salcedo. 0 for 1 with a strikeout in this game. Albin working with 2 outs, runners on second and third. First time all game, Laverne's had a runner in scoring position, and they have 2 of them. First pitch away, 1-0.
And probably a good adjustment made from Balbin right there. Doesn't hit his spot, but switching things up, going down and away. Imagine most of these things are left up, catching too much of the plate because they've been barreled and they've been kept in the air. Deep in the outfield here in San Antonio. A good inning, a little bit of a spark offensively. And Balbin now trying to adjust in his own right, make a good response on the mound for Trinity. Grounded
to first. Balbin runs to cover the bag and does so successfully to end the inning. Laverne leaves 2 stranded. This is still 16-0 Trinity. We'll head to the bottom of the 4th next on Tiger Network. Bottom of the 4th in South Texas, NCAA Division III Regional between Laverne and Trinity. Tigers up 16-0 as the cleanup hitter Christian Holloway steps into the batter's box. Holloway swinging the bat really well today, 3 for 3 with 3 singles. Pitch lands for strike 1. You know, Luke, I know the cycle is you get 1 of each, right? But there's got to be something for 4 of 1.
I think you have to contact the research correspondent, Reed Rosales, on that one. He's, you know, made a living, more or less. I think he's being paid $9 an hour to come up with his terminology. But, hey, $9 to come up with a little baseball terminology. I don't think Reed's going to complain anytime soon.
Well, that'll be his next assignment. As this is fouled back. Is it catchable? No.
That's a dangerous one right there.
That is a very dangerous, because somebody's walking down there. I don't know if they see that.
Yeah, that one just barely catching the suspension of the netting behind home plate. It put a little more backspin on it and kind of just fell straight back down to everyone waiting below.
That's the old coconut falling from the palm tree.
Yeah, I've fallen victim to that a time or two here in San Antonio. Of course, Cole, you weren't around when I got hit in the head by Harrison DeRoe, now in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. Pitch that he lost arm side caught me in the temple. Walked around for a little bit, looked a little wonky. I think the grotesque sight scared some people. But, you know, I'm hard-headed. No fracture, no concussion, nothing. Killed some interviews the next couple days. I think it helps when you're interviewing and you have a recent traumatic head injury, because like that's a really good icebreaker, is what I came to realize. I know you're still early in your career here at Trinity, but if you need any interview pointers, that's the one. Find a way to sustain a massive head injury. It paid off for me.
Okay, noted. Maybe there's a less painful way to break the ice.
I'm sure there is. And I'm sure Trinity will do a good job of teaching that to you in the coming years.
Holloway walks and brings up Colt Harris, 1 for 3 today. I believe he's one of 2 Tigers today hitting below 500 on this game. Come on, Colt, 1 for 3. What are we doing? One-oh pitch misses, 2-0.
He certainly has some work to do to keep pace with his teammates. But more than anything, the trend that's probably paid the most dividends for Trinity offensively today is leadoff runners reaching. Christian Holloway does so again in the home half of this inning. Of course, the first is, I think, the only inning where one of the first 2 batters was retired and Jack Baker gave himself up on a sac bunt. Outside of that, it's been a lot of traffic for Trinity. Of course, 16 hits. At least 1 walk now. Not sure if there's been any others. And then a couple more hit by pitches. Trinity has just lived on the bases so far in this one.
Harris ahead, 3-1. Take strike 2. Of course, we mentioned it in his first at-bat. Harris 7 for 8 in the SCAC tournament. So I think there he more than made up for his 1 for 3 day today. Hit hard into left, and the catch is made. Diving catch by Vogel in center. Takes a hit away from Colt Harris. What a web gem there.
Yeah, no fencing to worry about out there in center field, so Vogel can go ahead and fully lay out for this one. It's what he had to do. Gets to his spot and then launches. Great play by the center fielder. If not, this one's getting down in the gap. Holloway got a good beat on it from first, and luckily good base running meant he held up and retreated, but this one probably adds another run on the board.
And with that out recorded, Coach Winterburn makes the point to his bullpen, and it looks like this will be the day for Ian Wong. Pitching change in San Antonio. It's 16-0 Trinity in the bottom of the 4th. Pitching change in San Antonio, Garrett Halbison, junior from Rancho Cucamonga, California, comes into the game, making his 11th appearance. He's thrown 8.1 innings this year, comes in with an ERA of 8.64. He'll have an opportunity to lower that in this appearance. As he faces Ty Preston, who's 2 for 2, 2 singles and a walk. Ground ball could be 2. Throw to second in time, throw to first, not in time as Preston beats it out. He's safe with a fielder's choice, 2 down in the inning.
And one of the big things I was watching on that play was how well Ty Preston got down the line. Mentioned it earlier on the broadcast, dealt with some injury in the middle portion of the year. I know it was lower body. I know he came in and out of the lineup trying to go, but felt like he kept kind of just re-aggravating things. Double play ball right there, felt like he was going to have to bust it out. By the time I looked down at first base, he was crossing, wasn't running fairly hard, and still beat it out pretty easily. For Trinity, probably a good sign that he has trust in his body right now at this point in the year.
Brings up Kai Tinker, who's 1 for 1. Popped up. This should end the inning, and it will. End of the 4th, the first 0 put up by Verne. It's still 16-0 as we head to the 5th in San Antonio. Top of the 5th in South Texas. First pitch misses from Zach Balbin, who's back out there for his second inning of work. He faces the center fielder, Benny Vogel, who had quite the play in center field in the last inning. 2 great defensive center fielders in Vogel and Peterson. Take strike 1 to make it 1-1. Saw Jackson Tier come out of the dugout. He handed the ball to somebody in his family. Got an applause from the crowd on hand, and it's a pretty good crowd. Sitting under the shade of a tree right now. You always worry about that with school not being in session. Of course, we came back here to deliver coverage of this game and this series, but the student body not really back here. There's a lot of family and a lot of faculty supporting the Tigers today.
Yeah, and I guess it is more or less the designated Trinity side over there, closer to that third base dugout where Trinity typically resides. Of course, it does have that added benefit of the tree and some coverage out there.
Ball ripped to left, and it hops over the wall for a ground rule double, a hit for Vogel. As Verne has a runner on with nobody out.
And I was wondering if that one was going to fade, like we talked about earlier in this ball game, towards Caleb Woodward, who was trying to track it down. But no, Vogel displaying really strong hands right there, punishes that baseball, puts it in the gap, and stays really right on its course, splitting the 2 outfielders for Trinity and ultimately jumping over the wall out in left center field. I feel like we've seen that more frequently than this year than we did in years past. Of course, this turf was installed in the middle of my time here at Trinity. Grass just not as bouncy, didn't send as many balls over the fence in the outfield, but a lot of guys that maybe unfortunately for them have been limited to just 2 bags because of that ground rule.
0-2 pitch. Lined into right. 1 run being waved around. The throw not going to be in time. It heads to second. And Laverne is on the board for the first time today. It's 16-1, an RBI double for Vasica.
Yeah, we talked about it for Laverne earlier. Ball that just barely snuck over their shortstop. Probably needed to grow another foot or so, and it's the same case for Christian Holloway right here at first. He took his time to really load up and get into that vertical, but that one still another foot or so above his outstretched arm. Not the biggest first baseman in the world, and perhaps came into play just a little bit right there, but things continuing to look successful for this Laverne offense against Balbin. A couple more barreled baseballs here in the top of the 5th.
Lineup flips over as Francois comes up. Nobody out, and a runner on second. Now in a 16-1 game, Laverne getting one of those runs back. Hit hard to right. McDonald makes the catch. Runner stays where he is, does not tag, and there's 1 down. That maybe is one of the positives you can take away from this game if you're Laverne. They seem to be finding a lot more barrels against Zach Balbin.
Yeah, but it's this trade-off where you can always look at it from both perspectives. Talked about this is exactly what Balbin wants to do, right? You don't want to go out there and mess around and allow guys to walk and run up your pitch count and things of that sort. If anything, you want to go out there and you want them to swing it. Now, you don't want to see them swing it this well, and that certainly is true. They've had a lot of really solid contact, and they will carry that forward. Unfortunately for them, and fortunately for Balbin, maybe 50% of the time, those hard-hit baseballs have actually resulted in outs. Nice job by this defense playing behind him to track down some baseballs in the outfield so far.
Pitch gets away. Runner moves to third. It's now sacrifice fly opportunity for Salcedo. Finds himself in a 1-1 count. Grounded up the middle and through. And another run scores for the Leos. It's 16-2.
And another fairly hard-hit baseball right there for Laverne. Maybe not as hard as some of those other balls sent to the outfield. But the benefit of this one is it does sneak through, finding a hole. A nice job of just placing that ground ball, hitting that one straight back up the middle. Colt Harris and Jack Baker at second and short, respectively, not able to hustle and get to that one.
Matthew Diaz up to the plate. He's 0 for 2. He's struck out and lined out. It gives us an opportunity to talk a little bit about Anthony Salcedo. He's in his 5th year with Laverne. He's been a regular starter since 2022 as this is lined and foul into the Laverne bullpen. But just like his brother Aiden, he's come in and made himself a good career already, and he did it pretty early. Like many of these Tigers, he's in his 5th year, trying to make something happen. Ground ball, third base, could be 2. Throw to first, not in time, as Diaz is able to beat it out. We talk about the way that Laverne's season ended last year. Same way the Tigers did, a loss at ETBU. The only difference was theirs was in the Super Regional instead of the Regional. But a lot of these more experienced players for the Leos, they've had experience making deep postseason runs, just haven't been able to quite get to the promised land. And the same way with Trinity in a lot of respects.
I mean, you look at both of these teams, feel like they're very good versions of each of these squads. Of course, a lot more familiarity with Trinity, but Verne mirrors them in a lot of ways. They're just very balanced teams. I think Trinity's ERA is a little bit better. On the other side, for the Leopards, the batting average a tick up from where it is currently for this Trinity offense.
Hit hard back to the wall, but McDonald is there to make the catch on the warning track. That ends the inning. Some hard hit balls. Net Laverne 2 runs, but ultimately Balbin able to get out of the inning. We're halfway through this one. Game 1, the Tigers lead 16-1. Bottom of the 5th in San Antonio. Trinity up 16-2. Garrett Halbeisen in for his second inning of work as he faces Jack Peterson for the first time. Peterson 2 for 3, a single and a double. Also an RBI ground out. Strike called, makes it 1-1. We mentioned it earlier, Jack Peterson's such a key cog in this Trinity offense. When he's going, it feels like the rest of the team's going, and we've seen him hit in a few different places this year. Hit in the air to right, and the catch is made by Reese for out number 1, but we saw Peterson hit leadoff, I think into the conference tournament as well. He was doing that recently, but it's been moved down to the number 8 spot, which is closer to where he was to start the year. He started the year in that number 9 spot, and we talked earlier about the value that both of these teams place in that number 9 spot, setting up the top of the order. But it goes to show the versatility Jack Peterson has. He can be one of those guys at the top of the order, or he can set them up just as easily.
Yeah, and there's a lot that can be said about this offensive and more specifically lineup philosophy for Trinity. There's a lot of changes and just a lot of movement, jostling not only guys in and out of lineups, but guys hitting in different spots. And for Jack Peterson specifically, talked about it previously, a guy that's 6'4", swings it, has a left-handed hitter, has a lot of pop in his bat, playing in a relatively hitter-friendly ballpark, especially for lefties. Only 318 down that right field line. I feel like it plays a bit shorter than that. But he's simultaneously a guy that has a lot of speed, and he can put the ball in play, and he can put down and drag bunts really, really well. It just becomes difficult to know how should you play. Should you play to your power, or should you play more as a traditional leadoff hitter when you get put in a spot like that? I don't know. I think it makes his job a little easier to see him at that 8 spot in the order. Dropping down isn't always the worst thing. Sometimes in that 8 hole, you can get overlooked just a little bit more. You get pitched differently. And at this point of the year, coming out of some struggles, maybe that'll pay off for him a little bit.
McDonald lines out to right. It brings up Caleb Woodward, 2 for 3 in this game. Struck out the last time he was up. He has a single and a double. He's also been hit by a pitch. Strike one. Now, I remember hearing about Caleb Woodward. I had multiple people on the baseball team before I got here to the first practice tell me, Cole, you have to watch out for this Caleb Woodward kid. And I didn't want to say anything on the broadcast because I didn't want to raise expectations, put pressure on him. He's first year. But, man, has he been better than I think even they hyped him up to be.
Yeah, I mean, to come in and play what is pretty much turned into an everyday role in the outfield is one thing, but to do that, to hit over 300, to have double-digit stolen bases, to have multiple balls leave the yard, it's just a long list of things that Caleb Woodward has done very well, and he's lived up to expectations for himself this year, certainly, but I think he's probably created even loftier ones for himself down the road.
Came into this game hitting .308 as a first year, and both programs do a really good job developing first years as Woodward strikes out there to end the inning. Another 0 put up by Laverne. It's 16-2. We head to the 6th next in game 1. Zach Balbin back in there for another inning for Trinity, up 16-2, top of the 6th. Catcher Perry leads things off and takes strike one. Nathan Perry making his 41st start of the season, hitting a whopping .378 on the year. Grounded past the dive of Harris at second, and it's a base hit for Nathan Perry, something he's very used to. He began the season with a 13-game hitting streak, and he's only been held hitless 6 times all year.
Yeah, and that's a real luxury out of your catcher. I feel like traditionally, and it's really dependent on your guy, it's another one of those positions where you want someone that's really good defensively. And of course, there's a possibility that guys step in and also have great success offensively. But it's the one place, or one of maybe 2 or 3 in the defensive setup, where you're really willing to take a little bit of a concession.
Garcia back and gone. A home run for Noah Garcia leaves the yard and left. And it's 6-4. Or 16-4, I should say, in favor of Trinity.
Yeah, I looked up, and Caleb Woodward was just drifting back and back towards that wall out in left field. Can really feel the wind at my back as we're going through this one. Looked like that one was a pop-up off the bat, and especially when you saw it come down, the trajectory fell straight back down to earth and got aided a little bit by the wind, but hey, these past 2 innings, exactly what you want to see if you're Laverne. Any sort of spark, any sort of momentum, Still a fair amount of baseball left in this one. Top of the 6th, no outs on the board. It's a tough hill to climb, but can't count this offense out, especially when Hall Bison in the last 2 innings for Laverne has done his job and put up zeros for this Trinity offense.
Lined into right, and it's a base hit for Aiden Salcedo. But if there's a positive for Laverne, it must be Noah Garcia. He's 3 for 3 today. A single, a double, and a home run. He's a triple away from the cycle. Back-to-back 2-run innings for Laverne as it brings up Benny Vogel. Vogel 1 for 2 today, has a double and a strikeout. Still no outs in the top of the 6th. Pitch high, and it's 2-0.
There's really no arms moving in that Trinity bullpen. Good vantage point from where we are on the roof. Nobody throwing. Doesn't look like anybody is even up to get their bodies moving at the moment. 12 runs, still plenty comfortable with Zach Balbin on the mound, but it's a scorching start to this half inning for Laverne. 3 straight hits. Another at bat with a threat pending.
Back-to-back 2-run innings for the Leos. They have 10 hits, 8 of them against Zach Balbin. Some other really hard-hit balls. Pitch misses, ball 4. And 4 straight Leos have reached in this inning. So first and second for the Leopards. Brings up the shortstop, Vasika. 2 for 2 today, a single and a double. Takes strike 1. Vasika currently hitting .376. Added on to his RBI total, now has 17 on the year. Takes strike 2.
Yeah, and 2 really good pitches back-to-back right there. Balbin locating, keeping it at least middle down, the fastball and offering number 1, and then comes back, takes something off of it. A little bit of an off-speed, freezes the batter to move 0-2.
Pitch away, 1-2. Balbin trying to get the first out of this inning. Tigers began this game scorching, 9 runs in the first frame on 10 hits. Laverne's battled back a little bit in the hit column as this is lined, but foul into the fencing of the Laverne bullpen. It's now 16-10 in favor of Trinity.
Yeah, in this half, it's gotten back to, I think, what the concern was when Balbin first came in. Pitches left up in the zone. Balls that these Leopards can really punish. They've sent a couple to the outfield, and luckily for them, one has snuck out of the ballpark. The wind picked up and pushed it out over the fence in left field. Balbin, in this at-bat, seems like he's consciously trying to reestablish himself back in the bottom portion of the strike zone.
Hit hard to right. McDonald there to make the catch. Runner thinks about going, but nobody at second base to apply the tag. He stays put. First out of the inning recorded by Zach Balbin.
I don't know, at this point, it feels like maybe a little bit more credit is due to these Trinity outfielders, and specifically Maddox McDonald, who has worked out there in right since Balbin came into the game. 2 balls that off the bat looked like they had a really good chance of getting down in right field. He's tracked down a couple of those, and he's helping Balbin out. 1 out that you see in this inning coming by way of Maddox McDonald, maybe taking a hit away, making it look rather easy in the outfield.
Leadoff man Malachi Francois hits for the 4th time today. He's 0 for 3 today. Takes a pitch low for strike 1. Thought about it, but called strike anyways. 1-2.
And from our vantage point up here looked like that one was off the plate away. Francois not too happy with that call, and certainly it puts him in a little bit of a hole.
High, and it's 2-2. Francois 0 for 3 today. Struck out twice. He lined out to right. Still one down in the inning. Did he go? No. Close call. Balbin wanted it. Either way, it's 3-2.
That's another one. Difficult vantage point for us. More so behind the hitter than to the side of him. Couldn't tell if that barrel broke the plane.
Fouled into the screen. Francois will see another full count pitch. A walk loads the bases. Anthony Salcedo waits on deck. Fouled back again.
A good battle from Francois right here. Just fighting off pitches and putting Balbin in a situation where he is more likely to make a mistake. Right, one way or another, throw something outside of the zone or force him to throw something more so down the middle.
Fouled off again.
I think now Balbin's third trip to the mound, third half inning that he's been out there.
Yeah.
With that, more high-stress pitches for him, a little more action in the Trinity bullpen now.
Hit in the air to center. Peterson makes the catch, 2 down. So a big out for Zach Balbin. 2 on the board, 1 out away from getting out of this inning.
And a good fight between pitcher and hitter right there. Ultimately, Francois just didn't get something good enough to barrel up. A lot of pitches that he fought off, put that one in play, but just got under it.
Brings up the number 2 hitter, Anthony Salcedo, takes a pitch inside. Salcedo recorded a base hit the last time he was up. He'll try and get a follow-up performance. Now ahead 1-0. Strike 1. I feel like with all the action Laverne's had in these recent innings, it's important to note how Trinity's postseason started last year against the University of the Pacific. Tigers were out to, I believe, was an 8-run lead. That was quickly 8-8. Tigers had to win that game in extra innings, a grand slam to cap it off. It's the game that also featured Jack Martinez getting out of a bases-loaded situation with a called strike 3 because the batter took too long to get into the batter's box, a time violation. Foul back, makes it 2-2.
Yeah, I think that's something that Trinity fell victim to in the conference tournament a couple weekends ago. A time violation going down as a strike. It's an area where every team in the postseason really needs to be sharp. Changes that have been made over the last couple of seasons, something, just one more thing added on that you have to be cognizant of. Third base coach, first base coach, whoever's putting those signals in needs to know how long their hitters have at the plate.
Salcedo still in a 2-2 count. Balbin trying to limit the damage to 2 in this inning. Now a 16-4 game. He's gotten the last 2 batters out. Fouled off. As the Leos continue to make Balbin work, and that goes back to something we were talking about in the break, Luke. Is this Balbin's game for the rest of the way? The answer to that question, likely no at this point, with his pitch count getting up and some arms in the bullpen getting ready.
Yeah, I think you're right on the head on that one, Cole.
Hit in the air to center field, and Balbin gets out of the jam. Peterson makes the catch. That ends the inning. We head to the bottom of the 6th on Tiger Network. It's still 16-4 Trinity in Game 1 of this NCAA Regional. Bottom of the 6th on the campus of Trinity University, the Tigers have a 16-4 lead. Jack Baker, the number 2 hitter, set to lead things off in this inning. Popped up. And the catch made by Garcia for out number 1.
It feels like the script has really flipped in the last several innings. Trinity, who had just the longest innings that we've seen all season long on Tiger Network. Some quicker at-bats, and I don't know if anyone minds that with the scoreline that we have on our hands, but it has been Verne that's answered on the other side, taking advantage of some of the zeros that Hallweisen is responsible for on the mound at the moment, and at least gotten themselves onto the scoreboard.
Bison's done a good job eating some innings. Pitch to Lazara, misses away. It's 2-0. His 3rd inning of relief currently. As he faces Nick Lazara in his 5th plate appearance. 2 for 3, struck out the last time he was up. Take strike 1. Luke, this is not the only regional happening around. We've already discussed some other ones, the one in Cleveland, the winner of this regional we're faced, and then, of course, the one in Marshall, Texas that has some teams that both of these squads are familiar with, mainly ETBU, who showed up on the schedule of both of these squads.
Yeah, and ETBU really the only team meaningful to both of these squads that has concluded their game. They walked away with a Game 1 victory in their own regional, beating the SCAC champ that took down Trinity and Centenary Gents. Final score there, 5-2. Outside of that, not a whole lot of action that is finished up in the West. Of course, we've mentioned that Case Western regional taking place in Cleveland, Ohio, the regional that this one is currently paired with. That will be a super regional matchup that will await the 2 teams that we'll see in it.
Swing and a miss. Lazara strikes out. 2 down in the inning.
The 3 other SCIAC teams, for those Verne faithful watching from home, have not gotten underway or have just very recently gotten underway. I think 1st inning in the Pomona game. I believe also the 1st inning up in Marshall, number 2 game in that regional. Claremont Mud Scripps playing, I think, Concordia in that one. That one either just underway or about to see first pitch. And then lastly, I think it's Sinter and Cal Lutheran who will be awaiting their first pitch in just a couple of minutes. They're slated for a 2:30 start time in that one.
Cal Lutheran, one of the last teams in, an at-large bid from the SCIAC, one of 3 awarded to that conference, just showing how good it is. Strike 2 to Christian Holloway, who's 3 for 3 in this game. But Cal Lutheran, a tough draw, being in the same sectional as University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, who Trinity's very familiar with, played 4 games against the Warhawks earlier this year. Grounded to short. Throw in time, another 1-2-3 inning. Zeros put up by Hal Bison. As we head to the top of the 7th on Tiger Network, still 16-4 in game 1. Matthew Diaz set to lead off this inning for Laverne. Score 16-4 in favor of the Tigers. Zach Balbin back out there for his 4th inning of relief. He's given up 2 in each of the last 2 frames, and the big issue for him has been allowing lead-off runners to reach. We'll see what he does against Diaz, who's hitting over 400 on the year. Strike called, 1-1.
And I feel like he's gotten the benefit of the doubt on that outside portion of the plate to these right-handed hitters from Laverne.
Pitch inside, 2-1. Last half inning, interesting for Balbin. Gets out of a jam, but allowed a 2-run homer before he got out of it. Made the score 16-4, and that's not something that Laverne does a lot. Only their 12th home run of the year. Not really a power hitting team. They hit for average a lot, but able to get some slug on that swing.
Yeah, kind of flip-flop storylines for each of these squads. Trinity, their batting average, not the greatest in the country. 280 is really nothing to laugh at, of course, especially when you pair it with the home run numbers they have on the season, 37. More than 3 times the number that Laverne had, or Laverne has, even with that 12th of the year. Really good power numbers for Trinity. They haven't needed it today, and Laverne's really one of the only things that they've been able to take advantage of offensively.
Diaz lines out to right. McDonald still busy over there in right field. Brings in Logan Reese. Fouled off, 0-2. McDonald, not a usual starter in right field. If you're unfamiliar with the way Trinity usually aligns itself, Preston will usually play in right, and Woodward, or Preston will usually play in left, and Woodward will usually take over in right. That's lined, and it finds somewhat of a gap. As Reese strolls into first base, a knock with 1 out. But McDonald not usually playing the field. He's doing a great job today. He's been very busy.
And this is a Trinity outfield that suffered from some departures last year. Main one, Ezra Gore, moving along, who's a big contributor and had a lot of range in the outfield. This year, there's a question as to who was going to fill in the gap, and you pair that with Ty Preston's injury. There were a lot of questions for a portion of this season in the Trinity outfield, but they've mostly been answered. Maddox McDonald, as he talked about, a transfer, as this one's hauled in by Jack Peterson out in center field for out number 2, is another guy in the outfield that has, of course, dealt with injury. So Ty Preston hasn't been out there every day and is getting the opportunity to just DH in this one. Maddox McDonald, who looked to be able to fill a gap, has, faced some of the same issues.
Grounded to second, and that will end the inning. A scoreless frame for Zach Balbin as we're through the top of the 7th. Bottom of the frame coming up next on Tiger Network. Bottom of the 7th in San Antonio, Colt Harris set to lead off this inning. Take strike 1 from Hal Bison, who's been an outs machine so far. He's done exactly what Laverne's needed them to do. He used 3 pitchers in the first 3 innings of this game, but since then, Hal Bison's just taken the reins. Line, fair ball down the left field line. Harris digging in for second. He gets there standing up. A lead-off stand-up double for Colt Harris.
And finally, someone on this Trinity roster solved Hal Bison, at least for the time being. A scorcher down that third baseline. It was a nice effort at third by Aiden Salcedo. Full extension, but this one just too much speed behind it. Got down into that left field corner. I was worried for a second. Kicked pretty hard off that wall. Wasn't sure what kind of play that was going to create at second. But you're right. Harris in there pretty easily standing up.
Pinch hitter now in. It's Corson Hastings. He takes strike 1. Pinch hits for Ty Preston, whose day is now done. He leaves this game 2 for 2, 2 singles and a walk. Now Corson Hastings into the game. Fouled off, down 0-2.
Of course, a little bit of an announcer's jinx, talking about how good Hal Bison's been, and as soon as we get done saying it, scorcher off the bat of Colt Harris puts him on second base, but still have to applaud the effort of the Leopard on the mound. He's been really, really good, and I think he's continuing to do exactly what you're asking him to, just eating innings. He's definitely sped things up for Verne to this point, and that's great. The thing we haven't talked about all that much is the fact that, things unraveled so early on for arm number one, and a guy in Chase Peterson who I don't think either of us really anticipated to see starting game one. Figured it was a possibility and figured there was going to be some unfamiliarity with at least one starter, probably on each side in this series. But since then, Verne hasn't had to worry about wasting or spending innings on really high leverage arms. Everyone that's come in has thrown less than about 10 or so innings on the year, and I don't think you were realistically going to call on him in the NCAA postseason outside of a situation like this where you might not have a game in hand.
2-2 count to Hastings. Swing and a miss, strike three, and the first out of the seventh for Hal Bison.
Yeah, and a really good response in that at bat. Battling with Corson Hastings, who gets inserted, gets it to a 2-2 count, and then just a really nice breaking ball. Hastings in off the bench. Probably tell on your screen at home. A little bit more of a power threat in this Trinity offense. Big guy swinging the left-handed bat. And just had him out in front, a little trigger happy on that breaking ball.
Brings up Kai Tinker, who takes the ball inside. We're starting to see more substitutions for Trinity as Max Milligan waits on deck. One-oh pitch. Grounded to short. And the throw in time for out number two. Harris able to advance from second to third, and it will bring up Max Milligan.
Having a nice job by Vosica out there at short, especially with Colt Harris right in front of him. Didn't let that impact his play, charges that one straight away. And the way that Kai Tinker runs, I think it was probably necessary. And throw beats him by maybe 2 steps, but would have been a significantly closer play if he waits back in the hole at short.
Brings up Max Milligan. Milligan pinch hitting for Jack Peterson, whose day is now done, 2 for 4 with a single and a double. Take strike one. Milligan this season hitting .275, on base percentage of .362, junior from Amarillo, Texas. In the dirt, gets away, but not enough to advance Harris. The most interesting thing about Max Milligan is his family and their profession, bee farmers.
And we've talked about it before. I wonder if there's any translation. Do you think there could possibly be any connection between baseball and bee farming? He's probably the guy to ask.
Probably.
But I mean, realistically, I don't even know what it entails. What does that look like? I'll have to ask him.
One thing I do know is it's 700 pounds of honey per barrel that they transport. And I think he said there's 12 barrels per truck. So you do the math, and I don't really know how that truck stays up. You'd think there'd be some slouching on the back end of that truck with all the weight on the back end, but I guess they make it work.
You would imagine.
It's a lot of honey produced by the Milligans. Ahead 3-1. Ripped to center. Will it fall? Yes, it does. Over the head of Vogel, back to the wall. Milligan's digging in for 3, and he's in with an RBI triple. As his bat is buzzing.
I see what you did there. That was a good one. But an interesting decision from a fielding perspective right here for Verne. The wind is picked up and it's changed directions as it typically does here in San Antonio as the afternoon has gone along. But I wouldn't particularly say it's blowing in at us for the moment. And Vogel out there in center was playing fairly shallow right there. I don't know if they had some sort of scouting report on Max Milligan that led them to do so, but with 2 outs on the board and the defensive capacity that Vogel's already shown, the fact that Colt Harris was already at third, right? Any ball that gets down in front of you, he's going to score easily. I guess it's just a matter of preference, whether you want to be beat short right there or beat over the top. And unfortunately for Laverne, Leopards got beat over the top on that one.
The run makes it 17-4. It's Maddox McDonald up to bat. Hacks at that and misses. It's 1-2. McDonald started his day with a base hit. Now 1 for 3. As that single has also been hit by a pitch. 1-2 count with 2 outs on the board. Grounded foul towards the Tiger dugout, and we'll do it again.
You know, McDonald's an interesting watch at the plate. Kind of an interesting ritual guy. Stance is pretty even, closed off. You got that interesting lean where he throws his hips forward, his head back just a little bit.
McDonald grounds out, and that ends the inning. As we head to the top of the 8th on Tiger Network, Trinity adds another run. It's an RBI triple for Max Milligan, 17-4, Trinity. Top of the 8th in South Texas, 17-4. Trinity has the lead over Laverne in Game 1 of this NCAA Regional. First pitch from Balbin in the dirt for ball 1. Aiden Salcedo leading things off. Takes strike 1. Salcedo held hitless in the SCIAC tournament, but had a 6-game hitting streak. Went from the end of April to the beginning of May. This one lofted to shallow center. And the catch is made for out number 1. Some defensive changes for Trinity. Caleb Woodward now in center field. Max Milligan out there in left. Maddox McDonald remains in right. And I believe that's Cal Coney now at second base, in for Colt Harris.
No, I think that's Colt.
Maybe.
They look pretty similar.
He didn't get pinch hit for. That's right. So that still is Colt.
They both got some hair sticking out from under the hat. And they're both looking at us, don't have the benefit of seeing their number. Turns around now, and it is number 2.
Yep. All right, so that one's the same.
That's on us. Honest mistake.
Albin's still in the game. Has 1 out in this inning. Fires that pitch in there. Fouled off by Vogel. Finds himself in a 2-2 count. We'll see how much longer Balbin goes in this game. There are some arms active. As it looks like Vogel got a piece of that. He'll stay in the batter's box, still 2-2.
And based on some reactions down there and sounds here on the field, don't think the field might pick that up, but felt like it might have caught some flesh behind home plate right there. Lazara took a little bit of extra time before he got the ball back to Balbin, but he's been a very consistent everyday catcher for Trinity. Not many days off. There's some injuries to the typical backup catchers on the squad, and Lazara's had no issue taking, I think, a little bit bigger of a role than you might have anticipated coming into the year.
As Vogel fouls that off the light post, resulted in a loud dong. Sort of similar to a goalpost in the NFL. That's the way I would describe that sound for people at home. 2-2 pitch. Lined into right, and it falls. Nothing McDonald could do about that one. It's a one-out knock for Vogel.
Yeah, just a good piece of hitting from Vogel right there. In a fight with Balbin, 2-2, battled some pitches off, and gets one that's still, middle of the plate down, probably a spot that Balbin's not too happy with, and somehow Vogel manages to get that one in the air over the head of the infielders. Just a nicely struck baseball that falls in before Maddox McDonald can get to it. McDonald, who's already shown a lot of range out there and right.
Ryan Vasika up once again. Runner on first, one down. Takes a pitch for a strike. Something Laverne is not doing that I think maybe we expected at this point in the game with the score being what it is. Not taking guys out. Haven't seen any pinch hit appearances yet. Line to right. McDonald makes the catch that time. 2 down in the inning.
Yeah, and that one just a little bit more backspin on it. Causes that baseball to hang up, and McDonald ultimately gets there. Top spin on that last batted ball in play, deposited it right in front of him. And this one hangs up just long enough. Looked like Verne, however, was going to have another nice opportunity here in the 8th, but quickly things turn around and it's a 2-out situation.
Pinch hitter in for Laverne. It's Nolan Anguiano. And he grounds that fair for a single. Finds its way through the hole. Runner stops at second. It's first and second for Laverne.
Yeah, and I think very wisely stopping at second. It wasn't necessary, but McDonald threw through from his spot in right field, and it was a strike all the way to Kai Tinker on the bag. Maybe will serve as a warning as the weekend continues for Laverne. Be cautious going first to third on balls hit to right field.
Still 2 down in the inning for Balbin, and nobody up for Laverne quite yet. And now some in his first year with Laverne. He had quite the introduction to his teammates. 6 hits in his first 3 games. He went. He had 7 hits in his first 8. Pitch grabs the zone for a strike. I said that last part wrong. He has 7 of his first 8 games with a hit. Because that would, if he had 6 hits in his first 3, that meant he would have slowed down quite a bit. He didn't. His hot streak continued. Pitch lands for strike 2, 0-2 for Balbin.
Yeah, but now a tough situation in this one, falling behind 0-2, and interesting to bring the lefty off the bench to face the lefty on the mound.
Runner goes, takes third easily. So 90 feet closer to their 5th run for Laverne. Givens trying to bring that run in. Driven deep back to right field. It falls on the warning track. Over the wall, it's a ground rule double. Run scores from third. It prevents a run from scoring from first. And it's second and third for the Leos.
Yeah, I was surprised that we didn't see movement on the base paths on that pitch at least. And I guess it wouldn't have mattered at that point, but as a runner took third from second, I didn't see the double steal, and it cost him a run right there, but still down by 12. It wouldn't have brought the margin that much closer.
And our first visit from the dugout today. Head coach Tim Scannell coming out to talk to Zach Balbin. Working another inning of relief. He's so close to taking this thing home, and you would think that's what the Tigers want from him at this point. 2 down in the 8th inning, only needs 4 more outs.
It's been a lot of pitches for Balbin, and I think that's understandable. You don't want to have to warm guys up, get them through the process of getting hot, especially if they're not going to go into the game. But for these relievers, I think you want the opportunity to bring them in multiple times in a weekend. Balbin, that's probably most definitely shot at this point as he's crossed the century mark now, I believe.
Grounded past the dive of Baker. It'll score 1. Here comes another run. And it's 17-7. Diaz slides in safely. It's a 2 RBI double for Matthew Diaz.
I mean, it's just so shocking to look up and see a score line that includes 18 runs for a home team, 15 runs for a visitor, and for those two squads to still be separated by 10 total runs. 18 hits, 15 hits, I should say. I don't know if I said that correctly.
It's okay, you get 1, I get 1.
But still, 10-run difference. It just goes to show how efficient Trinity was in the early going. Everything came at once in that first inning. It was hit after hit after hit. I mean, Verne has responded, and the offense has certainly woken up here today. And 7 runs is nothing to laugh at. I think if they get that many in some of the subsequent games in this series, they're going to be really happy. It just, unfortunately for them, has come in a day where the Trinity offense was humming on all cylinders.
Pitch misses, and it's 2-1. Logan Reese up to bat. Works with a runner on second in a 10-run deficit. Runner goes. Pitch taken for strike 2, but they'll take the 90 feet instead. Balbin trying to get out of the safe. 2-2 pitch. Flared. Will it find the ground? It lands in foul territory, clanking off the glove of Colt Harris. Looks like some miscommunication between Holloway and Harris.
Yeah, and of course, Colt Harris had a lot further to go on that play coming from his spot at second. And I think the issue there is with more distance to cover, his call came just a little too late, didn't give Holloway the opportunity to vacate the area, and then trying to make the catch kind of just bumped into each other.
Swing and a miss, strike 3. It doesn't matter. Zach Balbin gets him out of it. Leaves this 8th inning, allowing a 3-run frame, but it's still 17-7 Tigers, 3 outs away. New pitcher in for Laverne, it's Jared Benash. The senior making his 29th appearance. He comes in to take Laverne the rest of the way. Fires strike one to Caleb Woodward, who remains in this game. Swing and a miss, strike two. Woodward struck out the last 2 times he's been up to the plate, but also has 2 hits in this game. Outside, 1-2. So Benash comes into this game to get the Laverne's final 3 outs. After Halbison did a really good job limiting the amount of arms Laverne would have had to use. They were on pace for just an exorbitant number. Didn't need to do that. He did his job.
Yeah, it was the 4th arm in, and I want to say the 4th or maybe the 5th inning at the very latest, and he did a really good job of bridging the gap until this point in time. Saved a lot of innings for the Leopards.
Woodward lifts that to left field, going back and can't make the catch. Stays in the yard. Woodward digging in for 3, and he'll retreat back to second. Thought better of that. Probably the right decision. It's a leadoff double.
Yeah, heads up base running. Took a good turn coming around second base, which is exactly what you want to do if you want to stretch that into third. But in the process of rounding the bag, looks up, checks where the baseball is, recognizes the outfielder's gotten back to his feet, has control of the baseballs, getting it back in, and realistically, unless something pretty miraculous happens, something goes wildly wrong for Laverne right there, you're not making it to third safely.
Brings up Jack Baker. Works with the runner on second, nobody out. That double is Caleb Woodward's 3rd hit of the game. He had a 5-hit game against McMurray, a game where the Tigers had 20 hits, or 24 hits, I should say, and 20 runs. Strike called to Baker. It's 1-1. Pitch misses away. 2-1.
Dan, good job behind the dish right there. It looks like it's Matt Rice who's been inserted into the game for the Leopards defensively. Feels like there are probably a number of defensive changes that have been made. Has been the case for Trinity. Just a little tougher familiarity on the other side for these Leopards. Looks like there's a change that's been made at third base, bare minimum. Givens pinch hit in that last half inning. It looks like it's number 20, not number 28 out there at third.
Popped up, and the catch made it short for out number 1. It looks like it is Givens out there at third base. So that's one change at the very least that has been made.
But it looks like it's the same out there in left field. Matthew Diaz remains in the ball game. Center field looks like it's still Benny Vogel out there. Right field remains consistent with Logan Reese. Pretty identifiable with that orange arm sleeve on the right arm.
Nick Lazara also remains in this game for Trinity. Takes strike 1. Runner at second, 1 out now. Grounded through, it's a knock. Woodward being waved around. He digs in for home. Play at the plate, not in time. Woodward is safe. 18-7. Trinity adds on their 20th hit of the game.
Yeah, real close play at the plate right there. And this ball put out into shallow right field. Just sneaks through that hole between first and second baseman on the right side. And it's a nice charge out there on right. Logan Reese gets to it really quickly, puts this one on a line. But Woodward just runs too well. It was going all the way. Third base coach Deering, really aggressive right there, was sending him without a doubt.
Brings up Christian Holloway. Holloway with 3 hits of his own today. Pitch gets away, not enough to move Lazara. One pitch. Grounded, could be 2. Throw to first. Not secured, and they only get 1. So the inning continues as Holloway reaches on a fielder's choice and a pinch hitter coming up to bat for the Tigers. Now this is Calcone.
I got it right this time, and I'm sure Calcone was watching that one with pretty great anticipation. Perfect double play ball right there, and I'm sure right before his eyes, he was worried for a second. Unfortunately for the Leopards, couldn't complete, what was it, tailor-made 6-4-3. Just a hard one to pick over there at first. The inning continues at least with one more batter.
Calcone, who got some action in the first half of the season. It's been reduced later. Getting his first at-bat of the game. Take strike 1. Coney, another Tiger who's from California. Talk about the concentration of the Leopards being from California. There's a large concentration of Tigers from Texas, but there's at least 3 Californians on the team that I can think of. Between Tinker, Coney, and Luke Pfeiffer. Trying to think if I'm missing any.
Oh, we just talked about Balbin.
And Balbin.
Right, Balbin,
Yeah.
Kai Tinker, Caleb Woodward.
Yes. From San Pedro.
San Pedro.
Yes, he pronounces it San Pedro. Ground ball, they go the short way, and that ends the inning. We'll head to the top of the 9th on Tiger Network. Trinity, a chance to secure a Game 1 victory up 18-7. Top of the 9th, Tigers 3 outs away from securing a Game 1 victory. Zach Balbin back on the mound, and his first pitch runs inside and gets the batter. That's Matt Rice, who heads to first base, and not what you want to see up as many as Balbin is. Brings up Noah Garcia, working with nobody out and a runner on first. Been a tough day for Verne, but not a tough day for Noah Garcia, who began this game 3 for 3. Still 1 triple away from the cycle. Pitch low, and it's 1-1.
And while there aren't a ton of guys that stand in physically imposing, he is one of few.
This one ripped to the gap, and if he can get 3, it could be it. Throw goes to third, and he will not get the triple, but it is a double with nobody out. 2 aboard for Verne.
And still an 11-run deficit. But in the back half of this game, I mean, you take away innings 1 through 3, You just look at the 4 through 8 on the board right now. Verne has put together a very, very impressive showing. I mean, if you stretch that, you just scale it to include 3 more innings. Put a 1, a 2, maybe another 2 on the board across those first 3 frames. You're looking at a much different ball game. It's just that this offense got going a little bit too late and wasn't quite as efficient as Trinity was. Talked about it just a half inning or 2 ago. Basically, every hit that Trinity had in the early portion of this one resulted in a run for the Tigers. Just not the same story for Verne.
Think about the gaps in terms of the hit totals. Not that far. Referenced it earlier. It's now 20-6, the hits in favor of Trinity.
One thing we talked about off air, and I think can mention it again here, it's especially relevant. It's a really clean baseball game that got played. I mean, messy given that there were a lot of hits, but just 1 error on the board, it looks like, being charged to Trinity. And not a lot of walks issued by these pitchers. Of course, they got hit on both sides. It's been Balbin that's given up 12 plus of these hits at this point. And for Verne, 20 hits surrendered on the day. But I think fewer than 5 total walks.
This one hit deep to left field. It clanks off the wall. Throw from Milligan goes to second. It holds the lead runner. The 1 run comes across for Verne. It's 18-8.
And man, that's 2 feet away from putting a 3 spot on the board here. Unfortunate break for Verne, who I've already mentioned in this one, does not rely on the home run ball all that much. I almost sent a second one out of here with that swing.
And that will be the day for Zach Balbin. Leads this game, pitching quite a few innings in relief, and he's in line for the win today. Tigers still need 3 outs to take game 1 home. They'll get them when we come back on Tiger Network. Welcome back to the top of the 9th in San Antonio. New pitcher in for the Tigers. It was Zach Balbin. Now it's Michael Boki. Michael Boki enters this game needing 3 outs in the top of the 9th, and he faces Benny Vogel. Boki fires strike 1. A graduate student from San Antonio, making his 12th appearance of the year. Comes in with a 2-2 record, ERA of 5.86. Pitch misses 1-1.
And, you know, Cole, it seems like as good a time as any to let the people at home know that my second tax exam of the year, my final, went much better than the first.
Good.
Clearly good enough that I walked.
You did walk I did see it, so I assumed it went somewhat well when I saw you walk the stage.
Yeah, there was a steady improvement. It was not a 50 raw score. Had another curve on the exam, and that helps always. But Boki, classmate, just a reminder, constant reminder of what we endured in tax class this semester.
Pitch rides in, and it gets Vogel. So he will reach. It puts runners at the corners with nobody out. And Vasika up to hit once again. And that's been the issue for Michael Boki all year. Hit batters. His whip and his ERA pretty good otherwise. Pitch inside, ball one. Now 2-0. Now where to put him. That one finds the zone.
Yeah, good job. Goes to the breaking ball right there in a 2-0 situation. I think more than anything, just to reestablish that release point. Is a guy that, we've seen a couple of versions of him on the mound this season. There's a version of him where there's been some struggles with his release and with hitting spots. And saw it in the first batter he faced. Another hit by pitch puts a guy on. But comes back at bat number 2. Good job right there of just putting some pitches in the zone, allowing the hitter to put a ball in play, and for Trinity to get the first out on the board here in the 9th.
Baker takes the sure out at first. But Laverne trades that in for a run. It's now 18-9. Fouled off. Nolan Anguiano, the junior from Whittier, California, making his 33rd appearance of the year. Transfer from Rio Hondo College. As everybody's coming in for a quick meeting from Laverne.
Yeah, interesting to see so late in this ball game and out on the board already in the 9th and what is still a 9-run ball game. But runners threatening, I think you want to execute. I think you want to establish some sort of consistency. They've done a really good job of that in the second half of this game. Really everything outside of those first three innings, have been very, very solid for Laverne. Don't want to put an end to that right now. Want to try and bring those runners in scoring position in right here. Feel really good about the fact that you put up 10-plus runs in Game 1 of this regional, even though you might end up losing it.
And you got to think the trend for how this game ended definitely goes Laverne's way. Trinity putting up 16 runs in their first 3 innings, only 2 cents. Laverne tacking on 9 since that point. We'll see if they can take some of that momentum into games 2 and 3 tomorrow. Pitch rides inside. It's 2-1. Very unusual to lose a game where you get 17 hits and 9 runs.
Yeah, I mean, this is more or less the offensive showing that we expected from Laverne in this ball game. A lot of balls put in play. Didn't really strike out all that much outside of when Jackson Tier was on the mound, and it's the norm for pretty much anyone he faces. And ultimately, it's resulted in runs here late in this ball game.
Pitch gets away, but that backstop, we talked about it. Play at the plate in time. Lazara tags him out, 2 down.
And a good play by Lazera right there. This one's not as easy as it looks. I mean, have to secure that ball with the thought in the back of your mind that you need to get back to the plate. I think very easily you can see catchers turn before it's secured. It's not the case there, but then of course he has to locate. He has a batter in the equation too. A lot of things to avoid. Nice job by Lazar right there, getting out number 2, and Trinity catches another break.
Now a 3-2 pitch, swing and a miss. Strike 3, and that's the ball game. Game 1 to Trinity.
I mean, what a showing by these home Tigers in the first 3 innings of this game, and really that's the difference. We've talked about it very extensively all afternoon long. Verne woke up. This is the offense that we anticipated, and I think it's the offense we're going to see the rest of the way. You know, you look at who these two staffs threw out there. Tier for Trinity. For Verne, it was Chase Peterson, who I think we both assumed we'd see at some point. We just didn't know if it was going to be game 1 or game 4. And when you consider that, I think this is the game that Trinity had to win, and one that Verne probably will feel comfortable losing. Obviously, feels really good no matter what to be up 1-0, and that's always the goal at the end of the day. But Verne, they have the weapons to come back in this series. And like we talked about, no one anticipated this one to be a quick 3-0 sweep for either of these teams. I think I'm still in the boat where I anticipate we play 4, maybe even 5 games here in San Antonio.
I completely agree with you, partner. These are the 13th and 14th teams going at each other. And it's the 13th ranked Trinity Tigers who take game 1. That's it for us in San Antonio. We hope you enjoyed this broadcast on Tiger Network. I'd like to thank everybody who came back down to San Antonio, Texas to help make this possible. Our executive producer, Josh Michigemba, deserves the bulk of the credit, but everybody else, including Reed Rosales and my partner, Luke Terry, deserves some as well. For all of them, I'm Cole Isaacson saying so long from San Antonio. We hope you tune in to games 2 and 3 tomorrow.